Hey yo, how is everybody's day? What is going on, chat? You already know what it is. It's another episode of Watch Club. Let me go ahead and do that audio check. Chat, you already know what it is. Hey, we sounding real good right there. Okay, I like that. How is everyone's, what is it, Tuesday? It ain't hump day Wednesday and damn show ain't Friday. But we are getting through the week. I hope everyone has been able to have a good week, but also a productive one at that. I've been feeling a little bit stuck in the rut, in the mud myself. So with Watch Club, I always have to push myself a little bit hard. I'm gonna push myself as double as hard today, chat. I remember last time we were not able to properly finish episode 8. So without further ado, we're just going to hop back into last week's episode of Watch Club, particularly episode 8. We were doing episode 39 of Empresses in the Palace. I didn't get to finish, but we're going to finish this time, and then we're going to move on to episode 9, Watch Club proper, if you will. As always, this is Empresses in the Palace, The Legend of Zhen Huan, the 2011 series. The series has a total of 76 episodes, and all 76 episodes can be found on YouTube. It is going to be under the channel LETV, Leteb TV. I will say, as always, disclaimer, the English subtitles only go up to the 54th episode. I do know the Magpie Bridge Brigade team that is doing the subtitles is constantly updating. If you want to find out the timeline, they have a Twitter channel. Just go through the comments. They tag themselves all the time. Also, they're typically leaving their links and stuff at the beginning of these videos. But without further ado, let's hop on into it. We are back on episode 39. And it really just opens with the emperor. He's talking with his court staff, and they're still talking about State Prince Dun. They're talking about L'Oncle Do. They're talking about Ningen Yao and all of the intricacies of the court as well. The ministers, the court ministers, they leave with a little bit of understanding and a bit of a misunderstanding on the emperor's stance on things. Particularly court minister Eamon. He asked court minister Jin Yundao, which is concubine Wan's father. He asked him, why the emperor in particular took the stance on dealing with the harem first rather than the court first, the matters and whatnot. And Jin Yundao, to his credit, he doesn't necessarily know much because he doesn't know what's going on with the harem, even though he has a highly favored daughter there. He just automatically assumes, oh, maybe the emperor wants to placate the women in the harem first because it may make dealing with other matters a bit easier. We're not necessarily sure, but we move on from that and we hop into some of my favorite scenes, which is a banquet scene. Chat, you fucking know I love watching a banquet scene. And sure enough, it is peak chef's kiss drama in this banquet scene. As always, we see concubine Wan. She's flexing that power a little bit, and she's going up against Songju a little bit because Songju's still trying to be provocative, and she's still trying to of course at the behest of Consort Hua, she is still trying to make nice and rub elbows with the emperor in any way she knows how. So she's offering toasts to him, grapes to him, all this kinds of stuff. And like I said, concubine Wan is flexing her power a little bit. She's not necessarily upset. I think she knows exactly what's going on with Songju and that whole situation, and that's why she's acting in this way. But I don't think she actually cares. I don't think she actually thinks that Songju is an issue or it can contest her power in any way. If anything, this is kind of fun for her. And Consort Hua even gets a little testy with her, and she kind of does what she always does, and she runs back to the emperor and say, are you going to allow them to do this? Everyone's getting catty. And so the emperor, oh bitch ass, as always, he turns to the empress and he asks her, Empress, what do you think about the situation, what should I do, blah blah blah. And she's like, there's always gonna be catty bitches, in a room full of women, they always gonna talk their shit. And at first I was like, okay, I mean, I guess That's true. And even the emperor is like, so this is how you handle things? You just let them fight? You just, it's like it's almost funny because like at the end of the day, like it'll never be his fault as to why the women act the way they do. It's either because the empress doesn't manage the harem properly, or it's because these women don't know how to act properly, and it's always going to be how they get together and fight with each other because they're women. It's never because the emperor overindulges and underindulges certain factions within his harem. Like, let's be honest, he doesn't care for majority of the women of his harem. He only likes about 2 or 3 of them, and that unfortunately conflates their ego. It makes it so much more harder to deal with them when they aren't in like when they aren't from like noble families or as of noble families, so they won't necessarily have that claim to arrogance like many of the other women do, and rightfully so. I'm not saying it's right. I don't believe in class and classism, but in this particular time period, someone like Sonju should not be able to contend with someone like concubine Wan. It's just not right. It's not right. But anyways, like I was saying, the banquet scene is always hilarious. Like, Concert Hua and Companion just swear everything is going their way. But I can't, like, honestly, we all know it's going to come crashing down. And the Empress also, she's very suspicious, but for the wrong reasons. I realized that she was very much attentive to the back and forth between Songju and Concubine Wan, but not necessarily because she knew that there was something up. She thinks per chance that the emperor is how do you say, como se dice, the emperor is going after another woman. He no longer favors concubine Wan, and so the empress, sussing that out from him, is starting to lead and like starting to push noble lady on into concubine Wan's good graces, because she still needs to consolidate her power, right? And she knows she can't necessarily do it directly through concubine Wan, and she needs to be able to fight against Consort Hua. But concubine Wan isn't going to do that for her. She might inadvertently help her because concubine Wan isn't going to be one to stand down, but she knows that she can't directly control her. So then we see her trying to push noble lady on into her graces. And it's also telling that even though she's aware that the emperor is trying to, or is not trying, the emperor is favoring someone, even though she doesn't necessarily know why or where it came from or whatever, she doesn't even try to like push noble lady on against Songju. No, she tries to still indirectly go through concubine Wan. And I think because she knows concubine Wan is her horse. At the end of the day, concubine Wan is someone that even Consort Hua will have a hard time going up against. And the empress knows that she can't necessarily do it herself, not openly anyway. But moving on. After that whole banquet scene and like the emperor gets all pissy, he's like, so this is how you manage the harem for me, and the empress is like, oh, it's my fault. We of course all the women begin to kneel down. They apologize because the empress isn't apparently managing the harem right. Also, the emperor, I forgot, kind of gets on concubine Wan's case too, and so he tells her to leave. He literally tells her, yo, get up and get out of here right now. And so of course, once again, this inflates the big heads of Consort Hua and Songju. They think that, he's not being partial, this is him rightfully so, punishing her because she breached propriety apparently. And he sends her to Pinglang Island. Pinglang Island is like this remote island because they're in the summer palace right now. They're not in their the actual capital right now. And so because Pinglai is located, it's in the back of a lake in the middle of nowhere, everyone's like, wait, what? All of a sudden everyone's like, you just gonna send her over there? Even, once again, like I said, because the empress pushes noble lady on a little bit to defend concubine Wan, it kind of goes to show you how if she's affected negatively, more than likely everyone else will be. Like, everyone's freaking out because if Concubine Wan could get in trouble, if Concubine Wan, can still amass all this favor but still be reprimanded, especially in public and in front of everyone like that, then they will have no footing. Who are they to ever try and like challenge Consort Hua and Songju, you know? But I digress. Moving on. The emperor, like I said, sends her to Penglang Island. She's like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, say these things. I didn't mean to be this offensive. And of course, Consort Hua is jumping on the opportunity. Oh, he would never be impartial. This is just desserts. And we see Su Peshang, his head eunuch, send her out. Now, of course, like I said, this is all a plan. And like I said, the Empress is suspicious, right? She is worried for herself and her safety, because once again, if Concubine Wan is the one getting in trouble, who are we not to somehow be in trouble? So we see in the next scene that she's being escorted out, her maids are with her, and Noble Lady An is there to send her off, all right? And we know this is obviously at the behest of the Empress. Concubine Wan's like, oh, okay, I didn't realize you would come with me, but, thanks, I guess, because Noble Lady An, the trickster that she is, she knows that indeed suffering with Concubine Wan will make her look better, because when Concubine Wan does get back in favor, she'll be by association in favor as well. So this is just another, scheme from the Empress's side of things to kind of like, once again, consolidate her power, once again, not reign in the emperor, but, kind of reign him to her side a bit and keep him away from others, right? But in the next scene, we also see Songju, Consort Hua, and Noble Lady Sao talking, right? And Noble Lady Sao is funny. She's always there, ever present, fanning the flames. And we know she's playing double spy. She's still on our team with Concubine Wan, but while also pretending to be a friend, or still pretending to be the friend of Consort Hua. So she's there fanning the flames, right? And it's causing she's causing such a huge stink that it's funny, because Consort Hua, for some reason, just can't see. I guess she just never sees how she falls into these traps. Like, she's so busy trying to scheme her way and trying to get her way that she doesn't realize half of the schemes she comes up with are, like, dumb and very much, like, plot hole filled, I guess you could say. A lot of the stuff that she has Noble Lady Sao come up with ends up being a double-edged sword. So I was surprised to see that she was so gung-ho about Noble Lady Sao and some of the things she was saying. Because of course she was talking about Noble Lady An losing her voice, but she's nothing but like an entertainer from the whorehouse. She's talking about Concubine Wan, how she was fortunate enough to gain favor, even if just for a moment, but who does she really think she is? That type of shit. And Consort Noble Lady Sao was like, oh, you know what? And speaking of which, this plan that you came up with Companion Chia being in favor is really gonna go far. If you do that, and you see that she's conflating her ego, she's making it seem like Consort Hua is once again in her prime and is able to continue the machinations that she's so very fond of doing, But as we predict, since the Empress pushes Noble Lady An to join Concubine Wan at Penglang Island, once everything blows over, because once again, this is prediction. Once everything blows over, the Emperor will see her in such a virtuous and selfless light that he will begin to favor her. And this is what I mean by Consort Hua shooting herself in the foot, because how could she not have thought of this? Because Concubine Wan's gonna regain favor. Look how easy it was for her to regain favor after being so cold to the Emperor for some months, So once again, her planning and her Machiavellian skills cannot make up for the fact that she's so like she's so drowned out and surrounded by those who don't actually care to help her. They're only there, if not to like help themselves in the end, take her down with the plans that they are making. Anyways, oh, also, and then because like the emperor will see noble lady Anna in such a virtuous light, you know, in such a like I said, selfless kind of like moral righteous person, this in turn will bring favor to the empress and move her into a more favorable light, especially after she was just reprimanded at the banquet for not quote unquote handling the trifles of the harem completely. Also, as we saw, the two women, particularly Concubine Wan and Noble Lady An, getting ready to be sent off, we also see Noble Lady Hui coming to send them off. And even though, or not, she doesn't come to send them off, like, personally. What she does is, because at first, you know, her servants are like, oh, are you going to say something to them? Are you going to say bye to Concubine Wan? You know, I understand you guys are very much not talking, but, you know, are you not gonna care? You're not gonna say anything? And she's still upset. She says, I don't care to deal with her anymore. If she was like a true friend, she would have understood why having Concert Hua back in power like this is such a dangerous plan. But she still cares, you know, and this is also another testament to the true sisterhood that they have. Obviously, she lied to her maid, and saying that she wouldn't, but in the end, she still sent her supplies and end up doing it, in a way where she was like, I only sent it for, Concubine Wan because I guess I care for her, but she actually ends up sending double clothing for both Noble Lady An and for Concubine Wan, stating and showing that she does care for them, even if it's just, you know, I don't want them to freeze, I don't want them to go hungry, but I don't care to be their friend. Even if it's just that little bit of caring, it still is a huge testament to the sisterhood and how much of a good person Noble Lady Hui is, you know. And I wanted to point that out because she is the exact dichotomy opposite of Noble Lady An. Noble Lady An is only there and acting as a spy for the Empress. She's only there to consolidate her own favor from the Emperor and as well as for the Empress, and to somewhat, you know, come off looking as like this, like I said, this righteous person, this morally virtuous woman who's honorable and honest and all that bullshit, which she completely isn't. Like, we know that she isn't. And so we see after a fucking, I think it was like, what was it? Let's see here, chat. There we go. After a few moments, because that's what it looks like, a few scenes. I'm assuming it was like a day or two. We see that the emperor was able to like subdue and crush State Prince Dun, or Yunhee's coup, with Ningen Yao. And that's where that's what he was talking about in the beginning of the episode, that Ningen Yao, State Prince Dun, Long Kodo, and some of the other princes were kind of forming this faction, and we're getting ready to usurp the throne from him. And as a way to protect Concubine Wan, he sent her to Penglai Island. And this was all a big plan that they've amassed together. This was something that they came up with together as a way to throw off Ningen Yao and Concert Hua, but also as a way to, I guess in a way to throw the Empress off, even though that wasn't their main objective. It ended up doing that anyway. So with that, you know, like I said, the coup has been squashed. It really just came to a brisk and abrupt end. And so we know now that Concert Hua cannot escape this condemnation of her family. Obviously, her brother, huge war veteran, huge player in the court, especially with the weight that he moves, forming a coup with one of the brothers of the emperor, that is treason. And typically what happens in those cases is the entire clan, or if not like the third or fourth generation's worth of clan members, are killed automatically executed. So we know up next, Concert Hua and Companion Zhi are gonna be on that chopping block, and I cannot wait, chat. So my final thoughts for this episode was my prediction did come confirmed, was that the Empress isn't done yet. She has more tricks up her sleeves, and she's using Noble Lady On to spy and be that trickster for her, as she cannot do anything directly herself. And then not that she can't, but she doesn't necessarily want to. She kind of wants to hide in the shadows and keep this air about her as like the most virtuous woman, the most virtuous, like the mother of the nation. She's keeping this front up, and she's doing it very well. But something tells me she still has some more tricks up her sleeve, and we saw some of them confirmed in this episode, but she isn't done. And excuse me. And the Empress Dowager, I don't think that she's against us. But I don't think that she would help anyone that is not in her family, right? And we see that recently the Empress Dowager was talking about bringing in women from families that helped contribute to stopping Prince Dun. And that's also going to be a big factor in the Empress trying to gain and garner allies, because typically the newer women coming into the palace, they know to look for, a place or a spot where they can protect themselves and their families from, like, the evils of, like, the harem. Because, off-right, I would hope that the women coming into these selections know that if you're chosen, you're going to have to live here for the rest of your life, and you're going to have to live here alone. You're going to have to be able to defend yourself, and if you can't, side with a person, whether they're good or bad, whether they treat you good or bad. I'm looking at you, Noble Lady Sao. Whether they're good or bad, you have to be able to, stand with them, because that's the only way you'll be able to protect yourself. And if you get pregnant, protect your child. So for now, though, Concubine Wan is safe and inadvertently helped Noble Lady An receive praises from the Emperor, we know that one of our biggest rivals, Consort Hua, is on the chopping block, and I cannot wait. We are doing Watch Club Episode 9, Empresses in the Palace, The Legend of Zhen Huan. It is going to be the 2011 series, and this series has a total of 76 episodes. All 76 episodes can be found on YouTube, on the YouTube channel, particularly LETV official channel, or Letev TV official channel. Quick disclaimer, all the episodes, while translated, they don't have English translations they stop up until the 54th episode. The Magpie Bridge Brigade team that is doing the English translations are currently updating. I just believe it's only a few people though, so you have to give them time. I believe they have to get the subtitles approved as well, so hey, please understand they are working with a few person team over there. That being said, let's hop back into it and let's get her done. We're back with episode 40, and we see, like I said, Concubine Wan is A-okay. She is back with the Emperor, and they are back at the capital in the state palace. They just got back from the summer palace, and we see that State Prince Dun has been detained. Their military coup has been stopped, and a total of 8 crimes have been filed against him. Alright? We also see that even though Ningen Yao was part of it, he himself has yet to face any judgment or charges. The Emperor is just solely focusing on his brother. The Emperor also remarks that because State Prince Dun is his brother, he can't just outright kill him. He'll be seen as a vindictive emperor, if you will, if he did. And so Concubine Wan, while there, excuse me, sorry chat, she's like, yeah, he does have excellent military service. He's also, while been rude to you in the past, has never overstepped bounds before like this in this way. So the Emperor says he will deprive him of his noble status and he'll be demoted to a commoner, right? Which is a huge thing, to go from the state prince, like an imperial state prince, to a commoner, and on top of that, he's being imprisoned in He's been imprisoned in the Imperial Clan Court, which is a particular prison for Imperial members and like their families and whatnot. And so we also see that his wife and his 2 children, they will be reduced to commoners as well. They'll have their titles stripped from them, but they'll be allowed to stay in their residence and allowed to, you know, like not necessarily live normal lives like they, or not live the same life before, but live normal lives, relatively normal lives. And you know, this kind of gets a little bit to Concubine 1, especially because she was somewhat of an acquaintance with State Princess Dun's wife. Remember Lady Borgingent? She came to visit her when Concubine 1 was sick, and she had her miscarriage, and Concubine 1 also in turn extended a hand to help protect her daughter and her son. So this kind of bothers Concubine 1 a little bit, but she doesn't, you know, give too much pushback. If anything, she's like, now, if anything, it's time to get to his supporters. And now it's time to get to State Prince Dun's, or Yunhee, because we don't call him State Prince anymore, Yunhee's supporters. And so the emperor at first is a little bit because of the dissent in court. Some of the court officials want him to be strict and execute the entire clan of individuals that helped this coup and prevent further turmoil, and set as example. But you know, the emperor is not too keen on that, and so Concubine 1's like, okay, what do you think? What do you feel about it? And he's like, there's sense in it, but it's not necessarily what I want to do. And so they're interrupted by Eunuch Su. Eunuch Su comes and brings in some memoriams, and of course they're sent by Ningguang Yao. And after dealing with State Prince Dun, or Yunhee, we see that Ningguang Yao is still looking for trouble in his own right. He's still constantly causing strife and rife between him and the emperor, right? And so we see that Consort Hua ends up feeling the heat and the pressure from this. We see that she, sorry chat, I'm just like burping from my soda. I'm so sorry. She's feeling the pressure from her brother's reckless actions. And those reckless actions were the mandamorium that he sent in, while initially under the tone of someone sending auspicious words, meaning sending good words or good tidings initially. Concubine 1 is like, this isn't something I could even dare to read. And he's like, give it, like the emperor's like, let me see it. And she's like, are you sure? And he's like, give me the paper, even more sternly. And as soon as he reads the paper, chat, he fucking loses it. He throws it on the ground. He's like, how dare he? He lashes out really, really hard. And of course, this effect is felt across the harem. And this is why Consort Hua is feeling that pressure. The words "work tirelessly from morning to sunset" verbatim were written in that mandamorium. And the reason why it's such a big deal is because like Japanese words, Chinese words have it's not kanji though. Chinese words, they can be used, they're characters. There you go. Chinese characters can be rearranged in certain ways that it can mean that while it can mean the same thing, it can also mean another thing, right? It has a double entendre meaning almost. And so the emperor notices this, and he's like, those words are reordered and written in such a sloppy manner to suggest a waning sun worked hard, rather than the other statement, worked hard all day or whatever. And this causes a huge strife, because what that means, a waning sun, meaning the emperor, what that means is that the emperor's overextending himself and doing things that he shouldn't necessarily have to do. And so this causes, like I said, huge heat and pressure on Consort Hua. She literally starts to freak out. Like, I believe she's talking with Songju. Let me double check. Yeah, she's talking with Songju and Noble Lady Xiao. And then when her eunuch comes in and explains all the words to her, she kind of gets, like I said, gets nervous. She even tells the eunuch to leave after telling her the words, and it's like, it's just careless writing, it doesn't matter. And the eunuch's like, no, you can't do this. The emperor is really, really upset. He didn't even comment on the mandamorium that your brother sent. So this once again sends Consort Hua into a panic. She's freaking out, and she's like, he would never do this. I don't understand. You know, maybe it's just a one-time thing. And we see in the next scene, all the court ministers are petitioning to remove Ningen Yao from his post. Specifically, Court Minister Iman and Court Minister Zhen Dao, which is Zhen Yundao, which is Concubine Wan's father. So once again, like I said, the effects of this are being rippled throughout court and throughout the harem. Everyone's feeling these effects. But after this, we see that the emperor, while very much getting ready to dispose of him, he still has to speak with his closest ministers, his closest cabinet, to fully pass and comment on what happened. And then the next scene, we see him talking with him. And we see that he says, everyone take a look, read it, you tell me what you think, because as of right now, while it says nothing but loyal and praises and they're reasonable, the concern about this is that why is he all of a sudden boasting achievements, all of a sudden writing in such a sloppily manner? It's almost like he's trying to intimidate the emperor, right? And this pisses him off. He's like, you see, I knew he could not be trusted. I knew this was something that would cause a huge issue, whatnot. And we end up flashing back over to Consort Hua. She's still sitting talking with Songji. And though she says, although the emperor still favors me, although everything seems to be as usual, he doesn't treat me any different, I don't feel at peace. Something is quite literally going on, and it doesn't allow me to rest well. I can't deal with the things I need to deal with. And Songju, while there to comfort her, isn't necessarily helping the situation. But we move on. We see that the emperor and noble lady An are talking with each other, and as always, she is just there to literally lick up the crumbs of favor she can get from following behind Concubine Wan, right? And the emperor doesn't really care for her. I wouldn't say he doesn't care for her. He doesn't care for the things that she can't do. He's telling her, I don't care to hear you sing right now. I know it's your thing, but I don't. Ow, chat. I'm over here burping, and it's getting to the point where it's painful now, chat. I don't know what's in this soda. So like I was saying, yeah, he's like, I don't care to hear you sing right now. I'm not really, in the mood. So she tries to go the other route, and she reaches for the lute, which is it's a type of, I believe a 4-string instrument, if I'm not wrong. And he happens to see the cut on her arm, on her wrist. And she, of course, I'm not sure if she did this purposefully to show it off, or just because he happened to catch it. But this is what I mean by there to lick up crumbs of favor. Because, of course, while trying to say, oh, it was nothing, just something there, she's still at the same times, oh, but it was something I did for Concubine Wan. I slit my wrist and provided blood for a medicine for her, because I heard it could boost the health of the person who intakes it, right? And still working off the back of Concubine Wan's name is the only reason why the emperor was even interested, even in her story in the first place, or even interested to have her sit there to play the lute. And so, like I said, she gets the little crumbs of favor. He is happy that I guess that they formed a sisterly bond, so he says, but is somewhat unaware of her closeness with the emperor, which, once again, he is someone that is so oblivious because he's too busy over pampering one side while under pampering the other to see anybody in the middle. So it makes it easier for half of these women to skirt along with some of the things that they've done. Quote unquote. What was her name? I forgot her name, chat. Noble Lady Fuka. There we go. Noble Lady Fuka, for instance, going around, like, she's able to, like, comment on everyone and, like, essentially wield power back when she was, about 3-4 months pregnant, essentially wield power of someone of a higher status, because the Emperor, while necessarily not favoring her, favored her side of people meaning the Empress and, Concubine Jing, I believe her name was. Let me bring up the script, chat. The script. Consort Chi, excuse me, not Concubine Jing. Yeah, so because he was still favoring the Empress, Consort Chi, Noble Lady Fuka, like he's favoring that side, it made it easier for her to skirt by and act as though she was someone above her station, and in turn treating those lower, or not even lower, though, if like one station higher, lesser than her. And it's really because, while yes, some of these women do have shitty attitudes, he doesn't do anything to make it better. Whoa, what is this? Chat, I just love when people, like, leave messages. I just got a whisper, which I've never had before on Twitch, and it's telling me best followers, primes, and views on youfollows.com by 97 the Jigsaw, and I'm just like, what the fuck? I'm sorry, chat, I know this has nothing to do with Twitch with Watch Club per se, but I just thought it was funny because I was like, why do you people send these messages? Like, do you not know that we're not gonna, like, listen or follow, or do you think that we're, like, 12-year-olds that don't necessarily know about the internet and, like, shady links or something? Because what the fuck, all you're gonna do is get blocked and, like, that's it. Like, I'm not gonna fucking, I'll probably talk about you probably get, like, your limelight, but that's about it. I'm not gonna fucking sit here and click on a shady link to get followers, primes, and views. Can you believe that shit? I know some people do, but can you believe that shit? I'm good, though. I'm good. Anyways, I forgot what I was talking about, chat. But like I said, we see Noble Lady An is there looking up favor, and while she's there, Consort Hua comes rushing in. She has her sedan chair sat down, and she, like, tries to rush herself into the palace, even though Su Peshong tells her that, unfortunately, right now, you know, the Emperor doesn't want to see you. He's with somebody. He doesn't want to, you know, be interrupted. And she doesn't care. And especially since it's Noble Lady An, she thinks that, oh, her presence isn't enough that to cause her to be in trouble if she were to disturb her and the Emperor's time, right? And so Eunuch Su, to his credit, is trying to stop her wholeheartedly, and he has, like, his 2 other, like, underlings try and stop her. And so she does. She stops, and for a moment she's she's gonna barge through, but she ultimately kneels down, and what she does is she starts to call out to the Emperor, and she's like, my brother didn't mean to do this. It was a mistake. Not writing, but the characters he wrote were written sloppily, but that's not what they mean. You know, don't forget about his past and all the things that he's done, all the merits that he's been given. And Su Peshong's like, please don't do this, girl, you gonna make the situation worse. And she doesn't care. She's just there on her knees trying to, like, get back to the place her and the Emperor were before all of this happened. And I'm just like, damn, her time is about to come. Like, her time is around the corner, chat, and I'm ready. I am so ready. I'm grinning so hard like a Cheshire cat, okay? But in the next scene, we see that for good reasons, not because I favor her, but for good reasons, the Emperor just tells Noble Lady An, just play the lute. Ignore this wench. I don't want to hear anything she has to say. And play the lute. And so it comes off as if the Emperor is ignoring her, ignoring her because he doesn't want to talk to her, when in fact he knows that if he did talk to her, he wouldn't be able to say no and resist, you know, her advances or her trying to vie for power for her brother. But I digress. We move on. we see that Noble Lady Hui and Concubine Wan in the next scene are finally making up. And I'm so happy, chat, because it broke my heart for them not to, like, be friends. And I'm glad that Noble Lady Hui was able to admit that she was wrong and did eventually see Concubine Wan's, like, point of view, like Concubine Wan said. She said, one day you'll understand. And she was like, you know, I trusted you to eventually come to the consensus on your own that I wasn't doing this to harm you or because I didn't care about what happened. In fact, it's the quite opposite. I just have to play the game, you know? I have to play the game in this way. It's the only way we'll be able to get back at her. And I love this because it really goes to show that while Noble Lady Hui isn't necessarily, you know, the smartest tool in the shed, she still cares enough to try and suss out and understand the point of view from her, you know, from her friends or friend, Concubine Wan. Because I don't think Noble Lady Hui has more than her as a friend. Sure, the Empress Dowager, but I wouldn't consider the Empress Dowager a friend. I would consider her more like a mentor and someone who's protecting Noble Lady Hui. But anyways, now that they're friends again, though, I do predict that eventually third wheel, that is Noble Lady An, will still receive favor from the Emperor, no less, but might get squeezed and booted out to the side because Noble Lady Hui is now back in the picture, right? And it does seem like what'd you call it? It does seem that while, like, how do you say, the Empress is aware that the two are friends again, it does seem like the Empress knows that she'll still be able to wedge a brick in between the friendship like she did once again. And I'm predicting, another prediction again, is though she will try, this will end up being the downfall of Noble Lady An, because Noble Lady An isn't capable in my eyes. She has to rely on help from the Empress and rely on direction from the Empress in order to achieve her plans, right? And so I feel that, once again, while she's gonna try and wedge herself through, it's not gonna work in the same way it did before, right? In the next scene, we see all the women, except for Consort Hua, are giving their greetings to the Empress, and the Empress is just letting them know Consort Hua's brother was demoted because he was disrespectful to His Majesty, but this should not be the center of gossip. We should all try and comfort her in her time of sadness and need, and blase squaze, really trying to put up this front of like all-encompassing, peaceful, and radiant and righteous mother that she is, knowing damn well she don't give a shit about Consort Hua. And she even's like, I know that all of you have, you know, your own bone to pick with her, but we all live in the palace together, and it's not gonna make it easier if you all are trying to shit on her, right? Which, if it were me, I'd be like, girl, I don't give a fuck, I shit all over her, okay? She's made my life hell for how many years in this harem? Yeah, no. Whew, had to get a water break there, chat. Anyways, what we see next, all of a sudden, is fucking Noble Lady Sao, as always, ready and willing to go. And so she immediately bows down to the Empress and is like, I've kept something from you, or I've concealed something from you that now that I'm able to, I need to say. And so the Empress is like, okay, go ahead. And so Noble Lady Sao ends up telling about what happened at the Summer Palace with Princess Wenyi and the cassava starch incident, in which they initially blamed Concubine Wan for, but came to figure out it wasn't her, but her name wasn't necessarily cleared entirely. So what Noble Lady Sao was doing is now throwing dirt on now throwing dirt on Consort Hua, because she is no longer in favor. Her brother's been demoted, and she knows that now is the time to get out from her camp. Like, she needs to jump to the other side. And so the Empress is like, why didn't you say anything earlier? And she's like, oh, I couldn't reveal it till today. I didn't know it was her. I was deceived by Consort Hua and trusting that it was Concubine Wan, you know, basically trying to save her ass. And I don't think anyone's buying it. Like, obviously Concubine Wan isn't buying it, but when the camera panned over to Consort Chi, she was like, yeah, okay, fuck yeah, whatever. And ow, my hand. And even the Empress, who probably doesn't buy it, is kind of not saving face, but is going with it, knowing that this will indeed like push Consort Hua down and allow more dirt to be thrown onto her, and indeed crushing more of her and her power. So the Empress goes along with it. And so we even see some of the women, particularly I believe her name, what's her name, because we never see much from her. What's her name? Oh, Attendant Shin? Chin? Pronounce that. I'm actually gonna look up the pronunciation because I feel like I have Google Translate and there's no excuse. I could fucking look up the pronunciation and try to pronounce it the best I can. Okay, so in the subtitles, in the English subtitles, she goes by Attendant Joy, Joie, which I believe is a French spelling of joy. But because I also have up the Wikipedia page for like their names, and then for the also perspective rankings, so I'm making sure I'm denoting who they are properly. It's Vietnamese. Chin. I thought Chin was, I mean, it could be more than Chinese, but it also could be Vietnamese. Chin. But how do it means new or fresh? I guess it means fresh in Chinese. So if I were to listen, let's see, chat. 1 second. Let me pause the music. Xin is what it says in Google Translate. Once again, I know Google Translate isn't the best, but just for pronunciation's sake, I'm gonna say Xin. But I don't like Xin, not Xin, Xin, like Shin, but it's very, very sharp, like Shin. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but like I said, we see Attendant Shin actually speaking up and saying, you know, as a mother, how could she not be scared of losing her child? Not the music just come bumping in like that, chat. LOL. She was like, as a mother, how could she not, you know, want to defend her child from Consort Hua now that, you know, Consort Hua can't do anything to harm her in a way. So essentially speaking up for Noble Lady Sao, but not because it's Noble Lady Sao, not because it's Noble Lady Sao, but because she knows that if she were a mother herself, she would also be in the same predicament. Whew, so hard to talk, child. So hard to talk. And so she was saying the Empress is like, yeah, everyone did have doubts. I guess we didn't, I guess the Emperor didn't investigate thoroughly for the sake of the good name of the imperial family, but also for the Nin family. But now, if what you say is true, we need to really deal with this. We really, like, Consort Hua is not the birth mother of Wen Yi, but she's supposed to, you know, like the Empress, she is supposed to govern like the mother. And it's really sad to see that the Empress is saying things like this while she has indeed caused miscarriages from other people. So it's like, these women are so two-faced and will say any and everything to make themselves look like they care or that they agree or whatever the fuck. But we see that finally Nin Geniao and his family are done for. He just received a demotion. He also received a downgrade in status, so therefore rank and power. His sons were also removed from their posts and titles as well. But more importantly, Consort Hua is out of favor, and she got ratted out by Noble Lady Sao for harming Princess Wen Yi. So, also for having her eunuch, because I didn't say this part, for having her eunuch, Zhou Ninghai, drown Noble Lady Chen. So all her deeds, all the little skeletons in her closet are being thrown out right now because her brother has lost so much power and favor with the emperor and therefore with everybody else. And it's really sad that it took her brother getting demoted for these people to feel like they had power. Because once again, not necessarily a fan of Noble Lady Sao, but I truly think that she didn't have much to work with. Like, she had to protect her child. Like, I don't think she had any other choice, right? I mean, well, yeah, she did have a choice. That's a lie. She did have a choice. However, there was no one else who could have competed against Consort Hua. Even the Empress had a hard time before Concubine Yuan came along and was able to somewhat check her. And then the Empress using her Concubine Yuan to then check Consort Hua. And so the Empress, upset, she immediately has Consort Hua brought to her palace. And of course, you know, Consort Hua, arrogant as always, because right now she's she's on her sedan chair coming back from the emperor. This idiot literally, because she gets angry that she gets summoned, because she's like, oh, what does she want with me now? This idiot comes storming in to the fucking palace, into the Empress's palace, and ends up beating on Noble Lady Sao. And I'm like, well, if that's not the definition of guilty, I don't know what is. Ooh, excuse me, chat. And so, like I said, this arrogant, fucking idiot that is Consort Hua comes running in, because I guess she heard from outside that Noble Lady Sao was, like, reporting on her duties. And so, like I said, when Consort Hua comes running in, she immediately beats on, Noble Lady Sao. And everyone's like, oh, shit. Damn, she must have really did all this shit. Like, everyone knew, but, like, there was never any proof. Everyone was like, yeah, she is evil. Yeah, she's probably done some things. She's done some things to, like, people that they know for sure. Case in point, Consort Duan, with pouring safflower powder down her throat and rendering her infertile. They didn't think, or I personally believe, they didn't think she would be so brazen as to drown someone in the palace and also use, you know, the life of the child, the health of a child to gain favor. I don't think they thought she would have done that. So seeing her come in and acting like this now, she kind of pretty much signed her death warrant. You know, the Empress is like, how dare you come in and act this way? Who do you think you are? And Consort Hua, once again, the idiot, she's like, oh, you think you don't even know me? Or you think you know me? You fucking don't know shit about me. I've always acted like this, and I will continue to act like this. Like, basically saying that, you know what it is, you like, this isn't day one meeting me, you know, and I'm gonna continue to do this even if it is, you know, in front of you. And she's like, you won't mind if I do it one more time. And she, like, literally starts to, like, she takes I guess her what is it called, her handkerchief, and she's like, you bitch, you dirty bitch, how dare you betray me? You've forgotten all how I've done for you, how you were able to curry favor from me and all that bullshit, you know, basically setting herself up, basically. I digress, chat. So after she's done with her tirade, and she let slip that she was indeed close with Noble Lady Sao, and she indeed did do the things that she did, she wants to know who instructed Noble Lady Sao to rat her out. And she wants to know why all of a sudden she would betray her trust like that. Like, who... excuse me, chat. She just wants to know who would make her, or who would even have the ability to allow her to do this. Because the Empress would never. Even with the demotion of her brother, the Empress would never do this. So she rightfully deduces that it had to be Concubine Yuan. But before she can get more out, the Empress is like, as you can see, she clearly stated she's done this. Obviously, the words of Noble Lady Sao are credible. someone have her taken to the Department of Penalty. She is going to be harshly interrogated. Or not her, her servants will be harshly interrogated. And so, like I said, she deduces it's concubine 1 that has done this. And so she kind of like, how do you say, kind of like goes off on this like tangent of, oh, you always wanted, you being the people, you always wanted to come after me. This is something you've waited since day 1, or wanted from me since day 1, but I won't fall. I won't take this standing down, or, you know, shit like that. And so from there, the Empress is like, oh, you better get her servants, especially Zhang Ninghai, who drowned, you know, a consort of His Majesty. So we see the Empress is gearing up for prosecution against her. We see the Empress is well within her rights, but also the Empress knows that now she has a solid foundation to go after Consort Hua. The Emperor can't say anything, her family can't do anything, and no one's gonna go against the Empress because they all hate her, right? And in the next scene, when we see Consort Hua sitting in her room, she's just sitting there with not even Songju, she's just sitting there with a random maid, and she's just like, where is everybody? Are they being tortured? What, I guess like a child not able to really comprehend the plight that she's in, right? And she's like, it's been 2 days and 2 nights, nothing's changed. A confession has been taken out of everybody who was sent to the Department of Penalty from my palace, so I know I'm gonna be doomed from this, right? And she even says they can even dig words out of the dead, meaning that, you know, these people unfortunately have been killed. Majority of her servants probably have been killed for serving her in such a indecent manner. And so from this we see, officially, the eunuch from the Empress, he comes to deliver, an edict on behalf of Her Majesty, or behalf of the Empress. And he says, we know that you're worried about your brother, or the Majesty is aware, the Majesties, both the Emperor and the Empress, is aware that you're concerned about your brother. So we're here to inform you, here to tell you that where did I leave off? Okay, so we're here to inform you that he's been demoted successfully, and eventually demoted back to a commoner, right? And so and it's funny because her demeanor, goes from, you know, scared to what's going on, like a child almost, like I said, unable to comprehend what's going on, to immediately switching over to this arrogant, overconfident person, you know, stating that my brother would never trust labelers and would never allow himself, a loyal officer, to be defamed in this way. And so, unfortunately, because this is a funny part to me, the eunuch just smiles and he's like, well, your brother, unfortunately, speaking words of rebellion, said a new emperor will rise from Shizhang, I hope that's right, which is a province at the time. So basically saying that a new emperor himself would rise from this province to overtake the current throne. Once again, which is words of rebellion, once again stating that he will do whatever it takes to defend himself. And that includes rebelling against the current monarchy, rebelling for what he thinks is his right to rule and act the way that he does. And his sister, Consort Hua, once again, arrogant, very, very arrogantly, is like, my brother would never say such things. This is all rumors, and I would never trust rumors. I would only ever trust my brother, that type of bullshit. And so the eunuch just smiles once again, and he's like, I see that if your brother continues to do these things, he's gonna get killed. He said these words himself, and he even ordered officials to preserve his position as a governor when he, like we just said, he was demoted to a commoner, right? And so she, once again, very arrogantly, she's still trying to deny it. She's still trying to say that it's not true. And so the last nail in her coffin, the eunuch then smiles once again. Is like, well, regardless of what you think, the emperor demoted him to city wall guard, a commoner of the city wall guard in Hangzhou, which is a very far away province. He has that literally means he's just there guarding the borderlands, like some green thumb soldier, instead of like an experienced war veteran who would govern that entire province, you know? And that finally breaks her. She doesn't know what to do. She kind of stands up and she's like, she kind of like spurts out words, but nothing ever comes out, and she faints back. And she's like, why would the emperor ever be so merciless to me? Why would he do that? And she like starts to cry, and she faints, and she does all this bullshit, all this fucking like show, basically. And the eunuch doesn't give a fuck. He walks out smiling and shit. And in the next scene, it's official. The emperor, while sitting with the empress in her palace, they're discussing all the confessions from Zhou Ninghai and all the servants of her palace. I really do love the ice from Chick-fil-A food. I really do, chat. It is so nice and crunchy. And so, like I was saying, the Empress begins to read off all the charges against Consort Hua, from the cassava starch incident with Princess Wenyi, to drowning Noble Lady Chun, to accepting bribes from officials, all that shit, to even setting up Noble Lady Hui and her pregnancy in order to defame her, right? And the emperor, and also sending her the utensils because that caused her to get sick with the plague and all that shit. She's also like, then there's also other stuff that states a deliberate attempt against other concubines. And she passes him this huge ass like tray, and it's like full of like, it's about 10 pages full of confessions of all the things that Consort Hua has done, and all the things that Zhou Ninghai did everything under her direction. And so the emperor, understandably upset, tells them to take it away, and he doesn't want to ever see it again. And the empress is like, you can't hide it away. You have to do something about this. And so the emperor is like, all right, I'm gonna investigate clearly, and we're gonna see all the people who helped her do all this. We're gonna investigate every single person she's ever been in contact with, and anyone suspicious, anyone who will not answer questions, anyone who so much utters a word of dissent rather than trying to cooperate should be flogged to death. And this scares Noble Lady Sao, because she indeed is a flunky and very much a part of the camp that is Consort Hua, right? And we see that she kind of gets scared, and so she looks down, and she kind of like, not necessarily says to herself, but she looks down and she kind of like, yeah, she says to herself, she's like, I can't, I have to do something, right? But before she does, the emperor finally states, because of her lack of virtue, because of her lack of morality, because of all the horrible things that she's ever fucking done, she is officially demoted to companion. Her honorary title will be taken from her, and her brothers, her nephews, all of them will be sent to some city wall in some fucking province, never to ever, influence decisions in court or in the politics or anything like that. And so we see that the Empress kind of flashes over or not flashes, her eyes kind of flash over to Concubine Wan, looking for her reaction to this, right? And this lets me know that once again the Empress isn't totally convinced that, I guess you could say, that the Emperor is done with Companion Yin now. And so I guess she looks over to Concubine Wan to see if Concubine Wan would say anything against her being demoted and not necessarily outright killed, right? And so this once again lets me know that the Empress, while very much aware that her huge rival is now being like ousted out, that being Companion Yin, she still has to keep an eye on Concubine Wan, because Concubine Wan is even more dangerous than Companion Yin, because Companion Yin used the no mercy tactic. She became cruel, and with someone who's cruel, they'll eventually dig their own grave. You know, you can only be so cruel for some time. Humans can only accept being treated less than after a while, and we see that with Noble Lady Sao. She easily turned on her supposed friend or supposed better, you know. But I digress. We move on. After her demotion, we see Noble Lady Sao kind of got off easy. She eventually like kneeled down in front of the Emperor and the Empress and everyone there, and was like she had nothing to do with or she didn't know the extent of Consort Hua's like plans and evilness, and when she did find out, she couldn't do anything because she had to protect herself and she had to protect Wen Yi, and she didn't want to you know, be killed by her. And so she was eventually, you know, like I said, she was eventually let off. The Emperor was fine with it, and if anything, the Emperor was fine, but if anything, the Empress was a little bit not upset, but was a little bit perturbed by Noble Lady Sao not necessarily being in trouble either, because once again she was part of the faction of Consort Hua. So the Empress says that she ends up bringing 2 more women to join the harem, right? Because once again, do you remember I said in the last episode the Empress Dowager wanted to bring in more women, specifically women of the families who helped oust Nian Yao and his sister. And so the Empress says that there's one lady from the Li family who is of the Han banners, and then there's also another woman or young lady from, I don't know how to pronounce this name, chat. Gualagia? Hold on, chat. Google Translate. Where is it? Such a different name too. Gulagia? What? Sorry, chat, gotta pause the music. Guwaldia? I don't think that's how they... I don't think that's the right name. Guwaldia? I don't think that's how you pronounce that. Yeah, this is what I mean by sometimes Google Translate being the least helpful. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna find the pronunciation on YouTube, because this is important. If we can say names like Tarkovsky and Swarovski, we can say fucking Gulawagia, if I'm pronouncing that right. But like I said, I wanted to make sure I'm pronouncing this correctly. Yeah, they say Guarja. Not Gulawagia. They say guardia. Like in what I mean I mean the actors and actresses say guardia. Guardia. And I'm translating it from Chinese, yeah. Yeah, no. Yeah, Google just sucks ass. I think I'm gonna just listen to it via YouTube from now on when I'm trying to pronounce these names, because I feel like there's gonna be actual like actual pronunciation and actual how do you say, emphasis on making sure the way they're saying it is the proper way it's said in the intended language, right? So like I said, she says that there's a the young lady from the Li family of the Han banners who is I guess who was one of the candidates to be accepted into the harem. There's also a young lady from the Guardia family from the Manchu banners who's also being interviewed as a potential candidate to be accepted into the harem. And it's worth notating that the Manchu borders, or the Manchu banner, or the Manchu bordered yellow banner, is technically the highest banner of the time. So she has a little bit more esteem to her name, in that sense that she would more than likely be the one chosen inducted into the harem. All right. And so the emperor is like, okay, so there's not many women from the Manchu banners as is, so we can just add her, you know? And I guess for some reason that kind of hurts Concubine Wan, because she's from the Han banners, and I guess she's like, I guess she's internalizing that as the emperor seeing her and her family and those of the Han ethnicity as lesser compared to those of the Manchu ethnicity as lesser. But we hadn't really got into this portion of the drama and into this portion of this particular drama, but I would assume that's what it is, because ideally those within the reigning power and those within the reigning monarch would choose women of their same ethnicity as a way to show loyalty, but also as a way to keep quote unquote the line pure, I guess you could say. But I digress, because that's not what this is about. This is about just adding about adding women to the harem. And so the empress is like, okay, perfect, we can choose a Manchu woman, or we can choose her from a Manchu banner and give her a new rank and name. And so the emperor is like, I like the name Delight, which can be used as an honorary name, and I'll give her the rank of noble lady. All right. So what we see is that this kind of gives the women a little bit of a shake-up almost, especially noble lady Sao, because the camera pans to her, because right now she's a noble lady. So there's going to be another woman entering the harem on this like same power and status as her in terms of rank. Not to mention, because she is from the Manchu banners, like I said, she'll have a little bit more esteem to her name, because that's just simply who they see as the betters of their time. And so we end up getting we get a new addition. We get one new addition, and then we get a rank update. So 2 rank updates, essentially 2 additions essentially into the harem. We also see that Companion Zhi, even though she is you know, technically a consort of His Majesty, he just allows her to still serve as a maid to Companion Yin, which is funny because they're both companions. So it's like you have someone in the same power as you serving you. I'm sure Songju doesn't see it like that because once again she's a maid, she's from the slave caste or slave class, if you will, so she doesn't see it as that. But it's just it would be a huge disrespect to someone like Han Hua, who is of a noble family and of nobility, to have someone of the same class serving her, you know, or what people would assume as the same class because they're both companions now serving her. And so with that, because I want to move on, I don't want to stay on this too long. With that, we have rank updates. Once again, the current ranks are as follows. We have older, or not necessarily older women, but they're older women in the harem, or who have been in the harem longer. We have 1 empress. We have 3 consorts. Consort Qi, also known as Consort Astuce in the subtitles. Consort Duan, also known as Consort Honnet in the subtitles. And Consort Jing, also known as Consort Esteem. We also have 1 attendant. Attendant Xin, Attendant Xin. We have 1 companion Nian. And we have 1 concubine. Wait. Who is she? Oh, did I add the wrong person? Sorry, chat, I just had to rewrite something in the script. I don't think she's a concubine. Okay. Yeah, so then we have 1 companion Nian. Now for the newer women, or the women who were added into the harem after the start of the series, we have 5 noble ladies. Noble Lady Fuga, which, actually no, we have 4 noble ladies, because Noble Lady Fuga is no longer, while alive, she's no longer technically able to serve the emperor, so she's not a part of the harem anymore. Okay. Sorry, chat. Just updating the script. I'm so anal about my script too. Like, it has to be perfect. Because it does throw me off when I'm reading it and I'm like, wait, what is this? And I have to figure out what I meant or what I was trying to say. Alright, like I was saying, 3 noble ladies. We have Noble Lady Hui, Noble Lady An, and now our new addition, Noble Lady Qi, right? We also have 1 concubine 1, and then we have 1 companion Shi. We also saw that, oh, yes, this is who I got mixed up. Okay, we also saw Noble Lady Sao being, not upgraded. Well, yeah, upgraded. Like, we see her having an update in rank, and she's being attributed to a concubine, Shang, I believe, if that's how you pronounce it. Just want to make sure. I just want to make sure I'm pronouncing this right. Alright. So with that, now the dust has settled, right? And we see Concubine Wad and Noble Lady Hui are still a little bit rattled at Companion Nian, right? Still being able to live comfortable in the palace, right? They're a bit upset that though she, while at one of the lowest ranks, is still able to contend with them and still essentially be alive after all the horrible things that she was able to get away with, right? Oopsie. 1 second, chatter. Let me fix this right quick. Sorry, chat, just had to refix my script. Be one quick second. Because this is important. Alright, chat, sorry. So, like I said, we see that Noble Hui and Concubine Wan are none too happy to see that she was only demoted. She wasn't sent to like the Cold Palace. She wasn't outright executed. She gets to even stay in her palace, right? And they're upset. They're like, that's it? That's all she does? Like, His Majesty is aware of all her offenses, but he clearly still has affections for her, and his conscience won't allow him to kill her off, right? And the two women, while upset, know that they can't do anything. And they even say, what about Noble Lady Wei, or excuse me, Noble Lady Sao, who was now concubine Shang. I swear, I'm gonna learn these names proper, chat. Mark my words. Do you understand me? Xiang. Okay. So like we said, we see that she absolved herself from all liability and was able to end up getting a promotion because of it, and she was promoted to concubine. This, of course, kind of pisses Noble Lady Wei off, because it's like all she could do was, derive sympathy, but she's so clever in the way that she did it. It makes me feel like, she's someone we need to watch out for, essentially, is what Noble Lady Wei says. And Concubine Wan agrees, but she's like, she has broken wings. She can only go in the circles that she's constantly created herself. Oh, that was like yeah, chat, that was like a 7 right there. I like that one. But yes, she's only going to be able to go in circles with the situation she's created for herself. She's incapable of doing anything, really. And I guess that's true. But if we remember the warning from Consort Zhuan, she is the Tiger's Claws and will do anything to, like, protect herself or her daughter. So, new prediction. We need to watch out for Noble Lady Sao. Because something tells me, not on par with Consort Hua's cruelty, but very much just as sly and like subversive, and able to subvert the objective like the Empress. And the Empress has been able to stay in the palace for a long time, so something tells me that Cao Qinmo, or now Concubine Shang, will have a big role to play as an antagonist in the second part of the series. And the next thing that we see, the Emperor and Concubine Wan are talking about all the offenses and all this, like, the literal counts of wrongdoing that Nin Gunyao has done. 16 counts of usurpation, I think he says, which, him trying to usurp the throne. 13 counts of insolence. 9 counts of rebellion. 5 counts of rebellion. 9 counts of slander and deception. It's like on and on and on and on and on, basically. And so, before he can finish, we see that Eunuch Su comes in stating that Companion Nian wants to talk with him and is requesting an audience. And so the Emperor, of course, of course he can only do anything but, like, reject her. But we see it in his face. He wants to see her. Right? And even though he's like, oh, she can come here as much as she wants. She can come here 1,000 times, 300,000 times. It's useless. I will never want to see her again. And we see, of course, she's outside, like, Companion Nian's, like, banging her head on the floor. She's like, Your Majesty, please, you can punish me all you want. Just don't kill my brother. Knowing that she needs her brother in order to get a foothold. She, in the future, in order to get back to where she was, she needs to be able to have her brother's support. And the emperor, like I said, he cares for her. And he tells her to go back to her palace, but he sends doctors over to treat her wounds and, you know, kind of somewhat is lenient against her, right? Finally, we see him writing up the edict for her brother. And it says that, considering all the merits and contributions he's put towards the state in Qinghai, he'll be spared torturous punishment and will be granted the option of suicide. And his first son, Nian Fu, will be executed. I didn't think it was gonna get like this. I didn't think he was actually gonna do this, chat, to be honest. Like, I really thought he was gonna spare him, right? I really thought he was just gonna send him to the borderlands or something. And he sends his sons, all his sons over the age of 15, so I think like 2 of his sons, to serve in the borderlands as part of the army, right? Essentially demolishing his clan to nothing. His firstborn will be killed, and all subsequent heirs will be sent. All subsequent heirs over the age of 15 will be sent to some faraway like war zone where they more than likely won't make it back. And so, of course, Ningguang, unable to accept this, his sister companion Nian, unable to accept this, they fight, not necessarily fight back, but they ostentatiously fight against the orders. They say they won't do it, it won't mean anything. If they're able to my face. It won't mean anything if they're able to fight against it and not actually, commit suicide and all that bullshit. And so in the next few scenes, we see that snow has fallen, it's officially winter, and Concubine Wan gets to see her mother again. Her mother has come to visit. And her father, while almost promoted, gets a different... He doesn't get promoted to a super important position, but he gets promoted within his department, making it a little bit easier in terms of... How do you say it? Making it easier in terms of optics on how it looks to be favored by the emperor. The Concubine Wan doesn't want it to be so that it looks like her... She doesn't want to be set up to be the next Nian family. She doesn't want her father to be someone who becomes... Not that he will, but she doesn't want people to say that her father's taking advantage of the favor and grace that she has. What you call it? She basically doesn't want it to chat, it's so hard to come up with these words half the time off the rep. She doesn't want it to become nepotism. She doesn't want the image of her family to be marred by the gossip of nepotism and they're only getting this way because of her favor and things like that. And we see that she doesn't even while she understands that she doesn't want that particularly for her family, there's nothing that she can do to stop the emperor from wanting to reward her and her family. So she doesn't make a big stink of it, but she does tell the emperor, like I said, promote him, but like within his department. Don't just, fill a huge power gap with him, because he'll be the next target as well. But we also see that the good news of this and all the all the wonderful things that comes with being promoted, her mother comes to talk to her about, and she says like, her second daughter Yurao, she's out with all the women from like all the women of the nobility of the families. They went snow viewing. Her father's been kept occupied with his new position, now I actually get to actually see you a little bit more. I have a little bit more leeway to actually come to the palace. So her mother is notating a little bit of the new perks that comes with being the daughter of being the mother of a highly favored concubine. But concubine Wan is like, because, and rightfully so, because she doesn't want to mar her family's name. She also wants to protect her sister, and she says, girls should stay away from getting involved in court matters. Please keep Yoral away from, the intricacies of the court, essentially. And although my father is in high regard, we still need to avoid, attracting, these rumors and, gossip and talk and all that stuff. And her mother dutifully agrees. Her mother's like, you're absolutely right. We'll be more cautious. I definitely don't, he doesn't socialize with big wigs and things like that. If anything, he likes to collect poetry. Woo. Sorry, chat. But with that, we are at the end of the episode. Finally, the Nian family has been, or my final thoughts are, finally, the Nian family has been officially ended. We got to see a little bit more of concubine Wan's mother. We get to hear a little bit more about her family, as they have been somewhat promoted and elevated to a higher status. We still have some newcomers in the harem. And like I said, I predicted earlier, now concubine Shang, Noble Lady Sao, is going to more than likely become an issue in the upcoming episodes. Something still tells me, though, that concubine Nian is still going to try and pull out the last stops to save herself and her family, like she did when she was kneeling down and like slamming her head against the wall, trying to get the emperor to care about her, which he did. He fell for it. So but I think while dealing with concubine Shang and still dealing with companion Nian as, villains, I think our next antagonist will be the Empress. I think she will be the next person to look out for, simply because of the way she handled and reacted to some of the things that came out about Noble Lady, or not Noble Lady, about companion Nian and her family, and how she was even able to somewhat throw more dirt on companion Nian's name using concubine Shang, because once again, when concubine Shang was under her and in her camp, she got away with so much, basically murder. She got away with murder. She got away with being the underling of Consort Hua unscathed, using the excuse that she had no choice, that if she didn't, her and her child would more than likely have suffered the wrath of Consort Hua. Let us hop back into it. Welcome back to another episode of Watch Club, specifically Watch Club episode 9. We are going to be doing Empresses in a Palace, the Legend of Zhen Huan. Zhen Huan. There we go. Gotta get that pronunciation game. God, this felt so good. Those fries hit me right, chat. But yes, this is the 2011 series, and this series has 76 episodes in total. All 76 episodes can be found on YouTube under the channel LETV official channel. Please be advised that unfortunately the English subtitles only go up until episode 54. However, the Magpie Bridge Brigade team that is responsible for the English subtitles is currently updating them. Just please give them some time and please be understanding. They are working with a small group of translators and localizers. That being said, let's hop back into it. We are back in episode 41. And we see that the Emperor is coming to visit concubine Wan, fresh off of her visit from her mother. And her mother kind of like got up out of there because she was like, oh, the Emperor's coming? Yeah, I want to be a part of that. Not in that like she didn't want to see him, but she doesn't want to like be up all in his face, essentially. That's not her role. She's just a mother of a concubine, and I respect her for that, because unlike some folks, people would have taken that as a reason to then oh, let me say hi to the emperor and shit like that, which is no. Get your ass on. So we see that Concubine Wan, while talking to the emperor, she is still kind of, she is kind of speaking up for Noble Hui. She wants the emperor and him to kind of consolidate their relationship and fix it. But the emperor is like, she kind of still holds a grudge against me. Every time I go and see her, there's always an excuse not to see me, or, that she's never there. Because of, what happened with her being accused of falsifying pregnancy and then me believing it. Which, in my opinion, I understand. I would probably do the same thing. But, you kind of have to practice what you preach. Especially, Noble Hui preaching to Concubine Wan that you continue to be cold to the emperor, you'll never have a proper foothold in this harem. A lot of our lives depend on the will and whims of the emperor, and if we don't make him happy, we more than likely won't be happy ourselves, But the emperor doesn't blame her either. He kind of understands why she holds a grudge in that way. And I don't know if they'll ever get along, but something tells me that they're not going to be the happy couple I wish them to be, like they were at the beginning of the series. Noble Hui is just too hurt. She has too much of her pride, right? And even Concubine Wan, while, trying to, make up for her lack of grace by, kind of pushing her forward. Make up for her lack of grace by pushing her forward and into his arms. The emperor kind of stops her and is like, I understand, you don't have to apologize, but it turns out, that while she does care for me, I could tell she doesn't really love me anymore, And I kind of felt a little bad for him, because I was like, so you recognize you was a piece of shit. Okay. Okay. Good for you, dickhead. Great. Anyways, we see that him and Concubine Wan are talking flirtatiously a little bit more. But in the next scene, this dumbass bitch, Concubine Shang, let me, I want to say it right. It's important that I say it right, god damn it. Google Translate. Hey, how do you say it? Xiang, not Ang, Ong. So Xiang. Okay, so Concubine Xiang, once again, doing what she does best, because we knew she was gonna be someone to look out for. We knew she was going to be a possible problem, right? And she's sitting here talking about how she secured a bright future for Wenyi after all her painstaking efforts. She's made sure that she's going to live the good life from now on, and no one's going to be able to stop her. And it kind of shows me that, once again, this is the calculating tiger claws that Consort Duan was talking about. Because she even says, I'm only a concubine for now. I need to get to consort, noble consort. I'm gonna crawl my way up by any means necessary. Because the higher I stand, the brighter Wenyi will have of a future. When you think like that, that lets me know that you're gonna be an issue. She's gonna be a problem. Because sometimes you have to be happy and you have to be humble with the station in life that you're given. And she's not one of those people. After narrowly avoiding danger with her association with Consort Hua, she's already jumping back into the frying pan, with these statements stating that she's now going to fight for higher positions, and she's gonna make sure Wenyi has a great prospect in terms of marriage and things like that. And it goes to show you that, once again, while a big factor in bringing down Consort Hua, she can just be as conniving and cunning as Consort Hua, and will be a big problem. And the reason why I say that is because she feels like Princess Wenyi isn't highly regarded, because, you know, she's the daughter of a concubine, and she feels like Princess Wenyi can be shipped off at any point in time if she makes a wrong move, all that good shit. And it's like, while she's saying Wenyi is her only child and she has to think out for her, you know, she's only doing this for herself. I don't really think she's doing this for Wenyi. Though I do believe she truly loves her and truly wants the best for her daughter, at the end of the day, I can only see a selfish individual, not necessarily a selfless mother from her. And I say that because she's like, Wenyi are the only people that, Wenyi and I are the only ones that can depend on each other. And her maid is like, well, yeah, what about concubine Wando? You know, she clearly wants to help you. And she is such a bitch for this. She's like, Concert Hua is not reliable, but concubine Wan is even worse, right? And I was like, what? The same woman that helped you get out of the predicament that you were in the first place? The same woman who was able to go against Concert Hua and take down her evil reign of villainy and tyranny, and you say she's somehow worse, right? Saying that she only needed you when there's something to gain, and, you know, concubine Wan can somewhat hinder her in becoming a consort in the future, so therefore she needs to guard against her now, lets me know that she's trying to fight head to head off. She's trying to fight head to head and go against concubine Wan in the future. And it's funny because she literally says, you know, I will have no mercy, you know, and if she stands in my way of me trying to become a concubine, you know, it's gonna be a problem. And of course I'm just like, bro, I thought you promised her to be an honorary mother in exchange for shielding you in the aftermath of the downfall of Companion Yin. But it looks like you're trying to, you know, plan your life with without like concubine Wan in it. And I'm just like, why do you think you can somewhat best her? She brought down Concert Hua. Yeah, she had to go through, you know, losing favor and unfortunately losing a baby herself, but she got back up and she's on her 2 feet like nothing. Yes, we were still back on episode 41, and we're talking about Concubine Strong's, like, betrayal, essentially, of Concubine Wan and her looking out for her. And in the next, scene, we even see the Empress Dowager and the Emperor talking about, Companion Yin and her downfall, and how the Emperor will eventually, give her the title of Noble Lady again if she's able to, you know, rein in her, like, her behavior, I guess you could say. And even the Empress Dowager is like, yeah, I doubt it. And then the topic moves on to concubine Shang again, because of the unpredictability of her, you know, kind of betraying her master, but also, you know, her in general never really been able to, like, being able to step out and being able to do things on her own. You know, while the Empress Dowager does, you know, appreciate and not love her, but appreciates her, especially because she was able to give birth to her own grandchild, she cautions the Emperor about her, and she even states that, you know, because she had to betray her former master, you know, she might not necessarily be someone of good moral standing, right? And the Emperor defends her. He was like, you know, the situation called for it. She really had no other choice, and in the end, the plan ended up working in their favor, and the Empress agrees. But she still kind of somewhat dissents against his decision, because while she's like, wow, like, yeah, you can promote her and everything, that's fine, that's appropriate. She, sorry, excuse me, sorry about that, chat. She doesn't necessarily deserve your favor. She isn't someone who is, who is, how do you say? she isn't someone who's reliable, right? You don't know what she's thinking. You don't know what she, like, can and is willing to do, you know, when you share a pillow with her at night. And with a woman like that, you're unable to control her, I guess you could say. You're unable to kind of read her and her movements. You know, she's not worth keeping around. That's too unpredictable. And the Emperor agrees. He's like, yeah, while she's very much intelligent, she is hella inferior to Concubine Huan, right? And even then, with this notion of superiority and inferiority, the Empress Dowager again cautions the Emperor, because, like I said, like, he tends to favor one side over the other. It's never an equal playing field with him, right? He never tries to distribute his favor equally, even though he feels like he might. He doesn't. And the Empress Dowager knows this, and she says to him, you know, being too smart is not necessarily a good thing, right? In reference to the comment about intelligence and how Concubine Huan is a little bit superior. And so, once again, the Empress Dowager cautions him in favoring Concubine Huan, and in favoring, or not even favoring Concubine Huan, and favoring one woman too much, but also, you know, making sure, like, especially Concubine Huan, these women aren't being privy to certain matters. You know, at least they decide to, you know, become engaged in a way that forces them to know things that aren't necessarily for them to know. Essentially stating that, you know, they become too smart for their own good, it is going to cause a big issue. The next thing I noticed, though, because even though, you know, the Empress is giving him good advice, even though she's clearly there to try and, you know, be a, how do you say, como se dice, a friend in his corner. She's trying to be someone in his corner and, you know, cautioning him within, you know, her bounds as a mother. He somewhat kind of retorts back, you know, about, like, he's like, you know what, yeah, speaking of exploiting favor and wielding arbitrary power, you know, l'encodo is someone, you know, that they should start, you know, trying to figure out what to do with. And at first, I'm like, what is with this? Because what I've noticed personally is every time every time the Empress Dowager and the Emperor get together, the topic of l'encodo, has her walking on eggshells. You know, the topic of him has the two of them straining the conversation further, because it seems like, for some reason, the Emperor does not trust him, while the Empress Dowager does, and that causes them to go at an odds with each other. And this is about the third or fourth time that I've noticed that she tries to stick up for him, and even the Emperor knows this, and the Emperor is like, okay, like, yes, they help me ascend, you know, to the throne. Yes, they help me consolidate my power. However, it is clear, especially with Nin Ganyao, because she's talking about Nin Ganyao and l'encodo in different respects, both of them being pillars of the state. You know, she talks about him as if he's better than Nin Ganyao. She states that, you know, he's growing. While Nin Ganyao is, you know, he was devious and evil and very much deserving of death, l'encodo you can think of as someone who is just ailing and, you know, is trying to, how do you say? How do you say? Como se dice? I'm not sure what I'm trying to say, but essentially the Empress Dowager is trying to give a cushion for l'encodo, and that's making the Emperor, like, you know, a little bit worried, rightfully so, because once again, if someone like Nin Ganyao, someone who helped me get the power in the first place, can then turn around and bite the hand that feeds him, so can l'encodo, which apparently is an uncle to him, is the brother to is apparently the uncle of the Emperor. Essentially, he is the brother of the previous Emperor, I believe. And so once again, it just came to my mind that like it creates a rift in their relationship whenever they talk about him. But moving on, we see that so far in the next scene, Princess Wenyi and her mother, concubine Shang, are kind of getting along. They're enjoying the day. You know, it seems like she's just there to kind of make sure Wenyi has a good childhood, right? She doesn't come off as like plotting and reckless as she had did before in the beginning. And sure enough, when concubine Wang comes up to her and is talking with her and whatnot, she's very much respectful. She doesn't, you know, like have that air of arrogance that she once did, you know? And they start talking about the new concubine that moved in, and how like we can see that the emperor cares about her a lot more, you know, that she's important in his eyes because of what her family was able to do in terms of ousting the Nian family. So I guess concubine Shang kind of used that as like a jab towards concubine Wan, but concubine Wan was like, well, Guarja-Emin, which is the father of the new concubine, you know, helped with the pacification of commoner Yun Yi and commoner Nin Gun Yao in terms of them trying to rebel and whatnot. So it's only right that the emperor's, you know, kind of places importance on marrying his daughter, right? Which is true. And we see that also Consort Duan, while in the background playing with Wenyi, she uses her body as a cushion. She literally cushions the fall for Wenyi when Wenyi accidentally trips over. And to me, another prediction, chat, I think the drama is hinting at Consort Duan becoming Princess Wenyi's adopted mother. And the reason why I say that is because the reason why I say that is because of the remark concubine Wan makes. And it makes me, well, first of all, she remarks in saying that you genuinely care for Wenyi as if she was your own child, you know? And it kind of makes me realize, like, oh, well, she didn't get to have her own child, right? It was that opportunity was robbed from her. And it seems that she genuinely has an affinity with children, so much so that, you know, she can play with Wenyi, no problem. Wenyi doesn't care. Like, you know, the relationship that they have is very, very much reminiscent of a mother and daughter. And so when concubine Wan said that, I was like, ooh, I see what we getting ready to set up. I see what's going on. And we even see, you know, what's her name? Concubine Shang testing the limits again by just mentioning, you know, oh, if I could only become a consort like Consort Duan, you know, everything would be safe for Wenyi's future. You know, it would never be an issue. But of course she, you know, retracts her statement. Oh, I was just saying that. I meant no offense to you, concubine Wan. Don't take it seriously. And the reason why she backtracks is because right now there's only apparently there's only a vacancy for one consort, and this is what I love about the subtitle team. Shout out to the Magpie Bridge Brigade team for sure, because they kind of put in the notes margins, I guess the subtitle or like author's notes, they put in the margins, kind of giving the explanation as to why a character would say this or do this. And they did that for this, which helped me understand as to why, you know, concubine Shang in the first place kind of backtracked her statement. And because there's only a single vacancy for a consort right now, right? And her stating, oh, how I could be, or how it would be easier if I could be a consort, is somewhat disrespectful to concubine Wan, especially since she is currently the favorite concubine of the emperor, and therefore would logically be on the fast track to becoming a consort, right? So once again, we see that she's still pulling like devious tricks with how she's stating her words and the way she's stating the words. But Concubine Wan doesn't care. She even calls her out. She's like, don't even worry. I appreciate your ambitions, especially for wanting to plan a future for Wen Yi, you know, if not necessarily yourself, right? But regardless of that, in the next scene, we see that finally we get to see Noble Lady Qi, or technically in the English subtitle translations, they give her the name, what was it? It's Turkish apparently. Delas? Hold on, chat. Let's hear this one more time. Google Translate says it's pronounced like what? Dilige? Which when you translate it into English, it means madly or like insane, lunatic, insensible kind of thing, crazy. Which if that is the correct translation, it's funny that that's the new concubine's name. Concubine Qi, or excuse me, Noble Lady Qi. But like I was saying, we see with Concubine Qi, so far so good. She seems super friendly, if not overly friendly with Concubine Wan. However, I predicted that as both of their fathers help in the pacification of the uprising from Ningen Yao and State Prince Dun. But in the next scene, and oh brother, chat, like, I promise, in the next scene, it really fucking bugged me. Because we see her talking, or not talking. What happened? We see her kind of like conversing with Noble Lady Wan outside of like the formal introductions in the Empress's palace, and I feel like she's gonna be another Noble Lady An. I feel like she's just gonna try and get close as possible to Concubine Wan, excuse me, to then somewhat spy on her for the Empress, right? And I say this because, once again, we see her introducing herself to all the women, but specifically Concubine Wan. But we also see her, she was favored on her first night with the Emperor. Sorry, chat. But when she goes to meet the Empress, chat. When she goes to meet the Empress, when I tell you this two-faced bitch could not even keep from bad-mouthing Concubine Wan, it was almost like that's all she was born to do, was just bad-mouth Concubine Wan. And I'm like, great. So we have another Noble Lady An. She's under... she's under the Empress. And we see it in the next scene, because the Empress and her are talking, and the Empress is like, oh, you've just served the Emperor, but you've come to still do my hair and greet me in the morning. You must be tired. And she's like, oh, don't even worry about it, Your Majesty, blah, blah, blah. Basically sucking up to her, like sucking on the tea that is the Empress. And what took me by surprise, in which I was like, oh, she really is another Noble Lady An, is because the Empress makes a really fucked up remark, and it's essentially racist, you know? She says that because she's... Well, no, let me actually get because this is like a sensitive subject to me. Where is it? The translation is... Okay, so yes. So she says, take a look around the harem. Apart from me, Noble Lady Fuka, and you, who else is from the Manchu banners, right? And who else... Or yeah, she says, who else is from the Manchu banners? At this point, the realm, or she's meaning the country itself, is of the Han banners, even though we're in a Manchu-led dynasty, you know. And she makes the the comment, before it was Consort Hua, and now it's Concubine Wan, who are trying to overtake, you know, that, I guess, overtake favor. And for her, she's like, the Han concubines aren't good enough. They're only trying to I guess to her, they're only trying to elevate the name of the bannered families, whereas she's okay, chat, let me backtrack. So what the Empress is saying initially, because I'm gonna summarize it, the women who are from the Han banner families have been monopolizing power from the emperor. And she, a woman from the Manchu banners, feels like that's unfair and it's not right. Especially because because they are in, like I said, they're in the Qing dynasty, which is a Manchu-led dynasty. But two, I'm assuming she carries this a special hatred is because of Consort Hua and how she's kind of monopolized her power, and therefore anything associated with her, including, you know, her ethnicity, her being from the Han banners, it's considered a threat. And so now we have the Empress making racist remarks with Noble Lady Qi there against the Han Chinese concubines, right? And I'm like, ooh. I'm like, wow, really? Like, just admit that you're not as good as them. Just admit that he can't and won't love you as well as some of the other women, regardless of them being Han Chinese or Manchu Chinese or even Mongolian, for that fucking matter. Because there were women from all over China that were brought in and accepted into the harem. But I digress, chat, moving on. And literally the next scene, we have this little confrontation between Companion Nian and Noble Lady Qi. And we already know Companion Nian, she ain't one for bowing down to nobody. That pride of hers, that ego of hers, does not allow her to do shite, right? And so Noble Lady Qi is like, oh, you still trying to hold on to past glory, girl. You still think you the shit. And I'm like, the last thing you want to do is rile up Consort Nian. And so Consort Nian, with her being who she is, literally reads her for filth from left to right. And she's like, I guess kind of like knocking her down a peg, if you will. Ow, ow. She's knocking her down a peg by saying, oh, you think you're just like me? But how dare, but she's like, well, precisely, she's like, you think you're better than me, but you don't even realize how you can end up just like me. And so Concubine Qi, or excuse me, Noble Lady Qi is like, well, I'm gonna tell the Empress and I'm gonna tell Concubine Wan that you're being mean. And Concubine and Companion Nian is like, I don't care. I went up against both of them bitches. Literally, she's like, they're just worthless bitches. And I went up against both of them, and both of them lost at my hands. So who do you think you are to make me feel any less? And I was actually happy. I was like, see, this is exactly the lesson. Noble Lady Qi needed. I really think she needed that run-in with her, because without it, she would not have the wake-up call that she would think she could be running shit. And it's like, the only reason why you're even, favored in the way you are is because you have the backing of the Empress, but also your dad kind of helped with, an uprising. Outside of that, there's really, the Emperor really don't give a fuck about her, Yeah. But I digress, chat, moving on. And in the next scene, we see Concubine Shang. This is why I realized that she's even more dumb. I thought she was smart, but she's really fucking dumb. No, she didn't even have time to enjoy her promotion, because literally, as soon as she gets a little taste of power, right? The was I gonna say? Yeah. As soon as she get the power to, make decisions on behalf of others, like killing off someone, she goes for the throat. Like it was, and I could tell this was a test. I could tell the Empress and the Empress Dowager did not care for the way she handled it either. They asked her, if you could, would you want to kill off, you know, what's her name? Companion Ian. It's like a solid 3. It's fine. Anyways, yeah, like okay, so they were testing her and how she would respond to I guess to how do you say chat? I'm always trying to find my words, chat. Tie up loose ends. There you go. They didn't appreciate how she like worded tying up her loose ends. She just wanted to literally kill off Companion Yin, and this was coming off the heels of having offended Noble Lady Chi. So it was like it's understandable for Noble Lady Chi to respond in such a harsh manner, but for someone who was supposedly unable to defend herself, why are you all of a sudden, trying to then kill off anybody who could at any point, well, no, not kill off anybody, but kill off the one person who at one point helps you get to where you are, Granted, she's not necessarily a good person, but that was your former friend, and you're so readily willing to just kill her for what? For being mean to one of the concubines? No way. And so even the emperor, who's aware of like not necessarily aware, but even the emperor who became aware, because he didn't really think of it as at first, because you remember when he was talking with the Empress Dowager, he didn't necessarily say she was this type of person. He just realized that she isn't someone he can rely on and therefore favor. But he came to the realization that she is also very much cruel, and that she more than likely helped Companion Nian with some of the shit that she wanted to do, and not necessarily was a victim, or wasn't entirely a victim, right? So he talks to the Empress Dowager, and they come to the realization that there is no value in keeping her around, and end up secretly killing her off with poison, dudes. Poison. So anyways, we see in the next scene that although highly favored and although very much, how do you say? Very much, because it's not like she has a lot of power. She doesn't. I guess that's all you can say, because she's so highly favored. Even with all of that, her big head and her ego, she doesn't know how to curb that, right? And in one of my favorite scenes, because once again it's a banquet scene, she ends up trying to go toe to toe with Concubine Wan and even Noble Lady An, right? And she ends up falling flat on her face. And she ends up disrespecting the Empress in the same breath, and was unfortunately unable to hold a candle. Okay? And the Empress recognized this. Like, she immediately realized, like, oh, she's not going to be as useful as Noble Lady An, right? But that is the end of this episode, chat. My final thoughts are, with the introduction of Noble Lady Chi, kind of underwhelmed by her character, but we know that she'll have a bigger part to play, so hopefully we'll see some growth. Whether she'll play an evil or a good part, I'm pretty sure it's leaning towards the evil, so we'll see how much of an antagonist she can really become. They haven't addressed it yet officially, but I'm pretty sure Concubine Shang is dead as hell. Like, that bitch is dead, okay? Or she at least won't end to the end of the month, right? However, we've already notated that the drama's somewhat kind of ramping up, or not ramping up, kind of hinting at that Princess Wen Yi will more than likely be taken care of by a surrogate mother, that surrogate mother being Consort 1. Companion Ian just can't leave well enough alone. She just has to come after Concubine Juan. It's just the only thing that drives her at this point. But Concubine Juan said it the best. She's digging her own grave, and there's nothing Concubine Juan needs to do at this point. She just allow her to do it. Just allow her to do it. And sure enough, she sent someone over to essentially burn Concubine Juan alive via burning down the connected palace that Noble Lady Chi stays in, right? But Companion Juan, not one to be outsmarted, was very much aware of this plan and knew Companion Nian would set herself up like this. She would do some crazy shit like this. And so, lending her a hand and getting Noble Lady Hui, who happened to be there, in on the plan, they then set her up into their plan of their own. And by doing that, they initially said, if he wants to burn me to death, let's give him a hand and let's burn this whole fucker down. And so she poured her hair oil out and lit the fire on her side of the room, essentially creating a bigger fire very, very fast, or even faster than what it would have been, which in turn would create this huge blazing fire incident that unfortunately, is gonna cost Companion Nian her life, because at this point, after having been demoted, the Emperor still had some lasting trust in her, in the fact that she wouldn't do something like this, right? And she just squandered that opportunity. Excuse me. So we see that, like I said, it becomes this huge blazing fire. People in the palace start running, fire, fire. They start yelling to get buckets of water and stuff. And, and we see finally, after the guy who ran to stop the fire, we see that, her head eunuch, Concubine Juan's eunuch, came to arrest him and was able to catch him immediately. So no one could say that this was just some random incident. They don't know how it started, whatnot. And in this way, making herself look more pitiful, her and Noble Lady Hui, and even allowing Noble Lady Hui to inadvertently burn herself, making the situation worse, or making the situation look worse. Sorry, chat. And making the situation look worse, the severity of the punishment has to be worse. And so we see that time and time and again, because she's fallen into these traps, and she didn't learn, the Emperor has now granted her suicide in the Cold Palace. And finally, after 42 episodes, she is dead. She's not literally dead as of yet, but she will be dead, chat. I just want to savor this a little bit more, because I just like fucking 42 hours, because each episode is 40 minutes. But sorry, chat. Fortunately, after putting so much into this, finally we get to see her in her entire downfall. She can't get out of this, she can't contest this. She can't say it wasn't her. Even the Emperor, who is, I guess, grief-stricken, because he doesn't look like he believes it initially, by the way, when he walks up and is, asking what's going on. He knows that he won't be able to save her from death. You attempted to take the life of one of his favorite concubines and inadvertently burned down her entire palace, with Noble Lady Chi's palace as well. So, two women whose father helped bring down a rebellious official are now suffering at the hands of the sister of that official. It's not a good look. It is not a good look, right? And so the Emperor... excuse me. The Emperor is like, I want to give her an opportunity to redeem herself. What did it say? Let me pull it up. Hold on, chat. Pull up this review because it's just easier with the review on my face rather than just going off my script. So 42. Okay. So okay. So he says if the accusation is confirmed, just grant her suicide, and he just walks off. He can't even, say anything after that because he knows that there's nothing to be said. And in the end, we see in the next scene, for the moment until her palace can be repaired, concubine Wan is staying with noble lady Hui in her palace, and they're rooming together, and they are quite literally beaming at the fruits of their labor. I just pulled a piece of skin off. How did I do that, chat? Oh, it was like a hangnail. Kind of pulled a piece off. Anyways, like I was saying, they're kind of like, enjoying the fruits of their labor of having to, burn down her palace, and then, Meijing, noble lady Hui, having to burn her arm so it looks a little bit more realistic as to how they got out and things like that. What are you saying? The 25th or 29th? Yeah, okay. So they're kind of talking about how, like, soon she'll be killed off, right? She won't be able to even surpass, the 25th of the year going into the new year, essentially. And with that, the two fall asleep, happily knowing that even though, through the mild pain that noble lady Hui had to go through, it was all worth having to see companion Nian sent to the cold palace and forced to die. It was all worth it. And then even noble lady Hui says at the end of the day all of this was worth it. She was like, and she even says, like, even after she's dead, I won't even know who my enemy is. I won't even know who to fight anymore, which is really a really good statement to make, because at the end of the day she is dead, but that's not the end of their troubles. There's always, if not going to be one like her, there's always going to be one trying to be like her in terms of cruelty and trying to rule the palace in their own way. They know how this machine works, and they're just nothing but a cog in that machine at this point. And I agree. Like I said, they have to live by the wills and the whims of this emperor, and he does not give a fuck like he should. Unfortunately, he sees a pretty face and a fat ass, and that's all he needs, bro. That's all he needs. Anyways, I digress. We're gonna move on. In the next scene, we see the Empress is giving out the official command, or the official edict, that companion Nian will be killed, or will be suicided, I guess. She commanded Sushi, which is her one of her eunuchs, to set fire to the Palace of Pearl Jade, which is where noble lady Qi and where concubine Wan stay at, and in doing this has forced His Majesty's hand to kill her, because that's an unpardonable crime. As if forcing concubine Wan into miscarriage wasn't, but I guess setting her place on fire was. I fucking guess, right? And so the women bow and they agree, and they're like, if you want to discipline her, hey, fuck it, right? So she sends her maid over to choose her own method of suicide, whether by knife or by li, which is by the white scarf, basically making a noose, or by poison wine, right? And I guess this is being merciful, because she even remarks how Attendant Chin even remarks how if it were her, she would have decapitated her in one go, rather than just fucking letting her drink a glass of poison wine. The Empress doesn't pay heed to the conversation itself, and the one thing that I wanted to point out is that when she does tell everyone to sit, we notice that concubine Shang isn't feeling too well, and she remarks she's been feeling exhausted recently, and her health hasn't improved even after taking medicines and things like that. And It's like, that's because you're being poisoned to death, dumbass. And so she apologizes for her manners, and she sits down, and it's like, damn girl, you couldn't even enjoy your title. You just had to be that person to fucking ruin it for yourself, huh? And it's funny because everyone around her knows the truth. Everyone is like, maybe a few of them though. Like I would personally say, consort Jing, and like, ooh, my leg. Consort Jing, unfortunately, who's very, very nice, very, very sweet. I think she would probably be the only one who doesn't realize what's happening to her. Doesn't realize what's happening to concubine Shang, and that she's being deliberately poisoned to death. But I digress. Moving on. Eventually, we see that, the Empress dismisses everybody, and, concubine Wan goes back to her room, and she asks her headmaid about what's gonna happen to Consort Nian, when she'll die, how she'll die, like what's the exact precedence for a situation like this. And her headmaid tells her, executions are done at sunrise, and that she'll have to choose between the method, like I said, the Bai Li, the white scarf, the poison wine, or a dagger to kill herself. And so concubine Wan says, okay, help me get dressed up, we're going to the Cold Palace for one last visit. And is essentially going to send Companion Nian on her way, right? And in the next scene, we see that Companion Nian is just sitting all alone, no jewelry, no makeup, nothing, in a cold room, staring down at the floor, unable to really process what's happening to her. And so we also see concubine Wan walking in, and of course, I didn't expect no different from Companion Nian. I didn't expect her to be remorseful of her actions, and in fact, she proves herself to be exactly who she is. This evil, vindictive woman who's unable to understand that she is the only one responsible for what's happening to her. No one else can take responsibility for this. You knew every step of the way that eventually you would end up in a place like this. You thought that it would have ended in you being Empress Dowager, once the current emperor's reign is over, but everyone else knew that you would be digging your own grave, unfortunately. And this scene, I wouldn't say it broke me, because that's not like the actual feeling that I felt, but I guess I felt pity for her in the same way concubine Wan felt pity. Excuse me. And essentially she hears that you reap what you sow type thing. You killed here it is. Yeah, so concubine Wan's like, you reap what you sow. I don't even understand why you're acting like you didn't see this coming. You poisoned Wen Yi and forced her food laced with a cassava starch. You killed Noble Lady Chen and had her physically drowned. You asked maid Yu to poison me. You pushed Noble Hui into the pond and made her believe she was pregnant for favor. What happened to all those things? What makes it okay that you were able to do all these things and then say that everyone pushed you into the corner that you're now in? There's no fucking way. And she was like, of course, unable to really see the big picture of the fact that she's literally about to die. She's just like, I knew fucking Cao Chimo, which is the birth name of Noble Shang, excuse me, sorry chat, is the birth name of concubine Shang. And she's like, I knew she was plotting in the background. How else would she have the guts to go up against me? It was always you doing it. And it's funny because concubine Wan's like, you really don't even know the people around you. Constantly putting her life at risk, constantly endangering Princess Wen Yi. What mother wouldn't want to stand up and, fend for themselves? How could you not see you know, the hatred growing. And she says this really cool line, and she's like, the ice 3 feet deep doesn't grow in one day. And she's right, you know, like, hatred like that doesn't just switch sides in one day. You very much pushed her into that corner in the same way you believed you were pushed into your own corner, right? And she doesn't accept this. She can't accept this. She even arrogantly retorts back, my sole purpose is to make sure you die. My sole purpose here is to make sure no one could ever have the favor from the emperor, because I'm the only one deserving of it, right? And at the end of the day, you know, of course they have their war of words and they go tit for tat, but nothing helps, because as soon as they're done talking, Eunuch Su comes in with, you know, the 3 options to give to her to decide, you know, how she would choose her own death. And in this way, you know, in the scene, I felt immediately like, ah, shit. Is she gonna attack? Like, I was like, is she gonna attack the, what's her name? Is she gonna attack everyone in the room with, like, the knife or something? I was like, she is crazy, because the way she was staring at the platter chat, I was like, yo, she's about to grab that knife. And so she even in this very moment, she doesn't believe that she deserves to die, at least not without the edict of, you know, of the emperor, right? She believes that no one can force her to her death without, like, the emperor there co-signing it, apparently. And so everyone's like, the emperor wrote off on this. He gave his full authority. And she begins to break down and cry, and she's like, does he detest me so? Does he hate me so that he couldn't even write the words kill yourself, essentially, in a fucking formal piece of paper? And we see, if we take note here, because the reason why I'm even explaining the situation in such great detail is because we see how Noble Lady Wan, in the same way that I felt pity, Noble Lady Wan feels a kinship, almost. And a kinship meaning that every woman in this harem could be facing the same fate. Doesn't matter your family background, it doesn't matter how much favor you have, it doesn't matter. It literally does not matter, except for how the emperor views you and what he decides to do with you, right? And she feels an immediate kinship in the sense that she, being a woman of the harem herself, could easily find herself in that position, you know, tomorrow or the next day or the next month, you know? It's a constant battle walking on eggshells and ice to decide your next move. You know, you'll never ever truly be safe, right? And so we see with pretty much, I guess, well, no, I'll take it back. Next, after, you know, Eunuch Su comes to bring the options, and Concubine Wan and Companion Nian talk so much more, she asks everyone to leave the room, in which they both sit there and talk, and finally, Consort Nian, because I'll give her that respect, Consort Nian finally explains why, you know, she was able to, or not even Consort Nian, excuse me, Concubine Wan finally explains to Consort Nian why she was ever even able to do the things that she was able to do. And I guess she didn't know, but, you know, Concubine Wan breaks it down. The only reason why you were able to do half of the shit you were able to do and get away with it is because you were the sister of Nin Ganyao. He was, like, your family name was so readily able to protect you. And, you know, in terms of, like, the shit that you've done and the shit that your family has done, now that you're literally at death's door, you can't even believe that all the stuff that you've done is wrong because the emperor hasn't told you that it's wrong. Alright? And she even backs up her statement saying, Consort Duan, you know, has a family full of generals, right? And she can't do shit like me. So clearly, what you're saying isn't true. And Concubine Wan, she's like, listen, you can keep lying to yourself, but you know the truth in your heart. You understand exactly what the fuck's going on. You know, maybe at one point you and, you know, the emperor had real love, but after all these years, do you really think he won't doubt you? Do you really think the affection that you once shared would be the same? And so the real sad part is Consort Nian does explain to how, like, I guess how her and the emperor came close, and how eventually she realized, you know, even with the favor she's garnered from the emperor, you know, life still sucked. She still had to wait days and days, you know, until the sun was in the sky to wait for him to come visit her. She still had to, you know, watch him essentially love other women. And she promised herself once she was able to regain her favor from him again, she would never lose it. Essentially explaining the reason why she even became the way she became was because of her love for the emperor, and how she'd never wanted to lose that. Never wanted to taste the bitterness of never having the emperor for herself. And once again, I felt bad for her in this, but Concubine did not give a rat's ass. She was like, girl, from the jump, from day one, I knew he was the emperor, and I knew that his love and his favor and who he spent his nights with would never just belong to me. And so eventually, after having talked some more, Consort Nian was like, I would never, or, you know, Consort Nian's like, I'll never accept this order. I'll never accept, you know, killing myself without him. Oh, 1 second, chat. 1 second. Oh, okay. Sorry about that, chat. I'm back. But yeah, she was like, I'll never accept a woman or a woman, the emperor loving someone more than me. It'll never happen. And so, after giving her one final glare to her, saying that you could never be me, Concubine Wan breaks one more truth to her and telling her about the Pleasancy incense and the true source of why, one, she was the only one ever to receive such a incense, and two, why she could never have children again. And she explains the whole backstory of how the incense was filled with musk, and how you would never been able to conceive a child after your miscarriage. And Consort Nian, to her credit, you know, finally broke. And she's still you know, she's still trying to fight and say, you know, that's not true, that's nonsense, it's bullshit, he would never, it's impossible, all that bullshit. And with a little bit more fact and like a fact about the situation, yeah. She explains to her, yeah, but no doctor ever told you, right? And why do you think that is? Obviously, no one in the entire palace could be able to control every single doctor, every single imperial physician, except for the emperor, dumbass. She was like, do you know that the prenatal tonic, or the medicine, the prenatal medicine that you so blamed Consort Duan for giving you and causing the miscarriage of your child, was actually ordered by the emperor? And it was the only reason why you were ever able to get away with harming Consort Duan like that in turn was because she was used as a scapegoat. She was used to take the blame. And it was like, know how much but no matter what, you know, you had never been able to get pregnant again. Why do you think that? Like, there's no fucking way. And so finally accepting the truth, finally realizing, because she can't hide anymore. She's gonna die eventually, and she's gonna be oh yeah, no, she won't be torn apart. So yeah, she's gonna die eventually, and she'll never really be able to be with her family again, except for in the afterlife. She unfortunately, she yells out in rage and slams her head into the wall, smiling one last time, saying, as if like a big fuck you to everybody else, like, oh, you think you can control me? She's like, oh, you think this is gonna end by your terms? I don't think so. And for a moment, I was shocked, chat. I was like, damn, up until the end, this woman really thought that, that the emperor loved her truly and wholly, and that they were going to be a happy family, and that she was going to have all his little babies. And I was like, damn, dog. Ooh. It sucks. And like I said, she smashes her head literally into the fucking pillar in the room and kills herself that way. As a last big fuck you to, one, the Empress, but also everybody else who ever tried to control her. And this scares This scares Concubine Wan. She kind of like steps back in horror and gasps in horror. And to her credit, doesn't shy away from the scene, but isn't able to really deal with it, right? And we see that in the next scene. Sorry, chat. When she's sitting down with when Concubine Wan is sitting down with Consort Duan, and they're just talking, and she's explaining basically everything I said, how like she could easily be that woman. She could easily see herself being the person in that room, thinking that, the emperor truly loved her for her, and not necessarily because of her family name or because of what she and her family could do for her. All right. But at this point, Consort Duan is, not ecstatic, but she is happy. Finally, retribution has come, and she's just like, oh, is the funeral over with? Not necessarily paying heed to anything, right? And I guess to her credit, while she genuinely hates Consort Nian, which now her name is not Consort Nian or Companion Nian, she was actually given a posthumous name, posthumous name, I think that's how you pronounce it, of Noble Consort Dunsu. And this kind of like irritates them both, but they realize like she's dead, and the dead can enjoy the glory in which the living can. And I agree. Like, it's over and done with. It is what it is. And Consort Duan, like I said, while also listening to how Companion Wan is lamenting over her death and saying how she died tragically, and even though she was a companion at the end of their life, she lived gloriously like any other person, like any other empress, and end up saving face for her with an honor, But like I said, they end up moving on from the topic because Consort Dawn realizes like there's no good to continue to talk about it. And so they end up talking about the death of Concubine Shang, and how like it's like they all saw it coming. Like I saw it coming, they saw it coming, right? Like nobody was ever surprised. And so while my nose, chat. While they're both talking about it, while they're both talking about it, you kind of see, how do you say it? me see. How do you say? You know what? Let me backtrack. This is because once again, Concubine Wan was aware that this was gonna happen. She was told by the Imperial Physician Wen that like the Emperor and the Empress Dowager, you know, didn't want her anymore, and they realized that they needed to kill her off, right? But at the same time, you kind of see how, like, while aware, they genuinely are upset, right? They genuinely are like, wow, like they're genuinely, like I said, they're genuinely upset, they're genuinely mad, but however, was not something unprecedented for them, right? Especially after, you know, after, after, noble consort Dunsu was killed and whatnot, Concubine Wan knew that, Concubine Shang would not last long, especially since that was her former master, and she was eagerly trying to kill her off, you know? Because she was afraid that maybe, which rightfully so the Emperor would have, but maybe, you know, Imperial Noble Consort Dunsu would have gotten back in power and would have been able to deal with her in a way, right? Ooh. But I digress, we move on. Literally in the next scene, we see Noble Lady Hui talking with Imperial Physician Wen, and you know, her scar isn't healing, but he's like, oh, it'll heal in time, and she's like, it's because of my health, whatever, and he's like, don't worry, please take time, I mean, these things take time, please, you know, rest yourself, and whatnot, and I just want to know if there's something more behind it. And the reason why I say that is because once Imperial Physician Wen leaves and, you know, she gets the tonic, the medication that he leaves for her, she throws it away, right? And I don't know if that's because she intentionally doesn't want to heal her burn and is like marring her body, or if there's something else behind it, right? Excuse me. Ooh. Sorry, chat. In the next scene, we see the Emperor is talking with his court ministers, and they're talking about Nian Gunyao and about this apparent book that has been going around the capital. Damn, chat, what is going on? That is going around the capital, and it's saying how, like, it's basically just rumor based. It's just some random book that some fucking guy wrote on the street, right? Saying that how Nian Gunyao was defamed and he was mistreated, and like, you know, he was a very honorable officer in the court, you know, that type of shit. And this angers the Emperor, right? And he's like, who wrote this? Who fucking wrote this? And he immediately calls for the death of the person who wrote it. He literally says he will be beheaded in public, and his head will be hung on a fucking front market for 10 years. And everyone's like, what the everyone being his court ministers. Sorry, chat. Every one of his ministers are like, what the fuck? Like, immediately there, because even I was like, that's a huge fucking, like, punishment. Bro, you wouldn't even kill someone who killed your own child, but they slander, or not even slander, they say you made a bad decision on killing one of your court ministers, and all of a sudden, boy, you about to kill them. And not to mention, he says all the women in his family will become slaves of the nations or the frontier men that surrender, and all his sons and all the men in the family will be banished to Ninguta, which is like a remote, cold, and like desolate part of the country, right? And this kind of like had me like turn me for a loop, because I was a little like, damn, that's kind of harsh, even for like someone not agreeing with your opinion, right? But the next thing that we see is, after all of that is done, we see the court ministers leaving, and court official Eamon is talking to court official Zhen, right? And for some reason, my gut tells me not to trust him. Eamon and his daughter seem fake as hell and are only getting close to the Zhen family for information and personal gain. I do not trust him, right? But moving on. That's not the important thing right now. I'm focusing on the harem right now. Anyways, we see that Consort Duan, like I said, prediction came true, will be a mother soon. She's gonna be able to adopt Princess S1.E9. Hopefully we'll get to explore a little bit we get to explore a little bit more of her mothering of Princess S1.E9 and like the overall adoption in the next episode. But Billy May's here with another prediction because of the next scene. Something tells me Noble Lady Hui has fallen for Imperial Physician Wen and is using her burn injury to continue seeing him, right? And I say that because no matter the amount of medicine she's taking, no matter the amount of scar gel she keeps putting on, it's not healing 110%, right? And we even see when she because what happens is Concubine Wan and Noble Lady Hui are talking together. Once Concubine Wan leaves, we even see Noble Lady Hui is overly anxious to see Imperial Physician Wen and is even asking her maids, oh, when is he coming? He should have been here about 5 minutes ago. And her maid's like, it's only, this o'clock, he's not gonna be able to, or he isn't coming at this time yet. And, she's like, oh, okay, I must have, mistaken the time type of thing, right? And I'm like, oh, you want to see him every single day. You trying to see him every single day. That's why your burn isn't healing, right? But anyways, we have a few soon to be rank updates, and we have a new addition. I want to go ahead and talk about the soon to be rank updates, just because I typically like to wait until the actual coronation ceremony is held in the dramas until I give these women the titles, because I feel like I done watched so many dramas where they say this person will be this particular ranked individual, and then like something bad happens 30 seconds later and it's like nope, they're dead now. And I'm just like, yo, I thought we were doing this, what happened? Right? Anyways, moving on. But my nose. Let me see, where are we now? We were just talking about, oh yes, we were talking about rank updates, right? And so we have, like I explained before, the current ranks as follows. We have the older, meaning the women who were in the harem already at the start of the series and therefore are considered like senior members of the harem. We have the 1 Empress, right? We have 4 consorts now. We have Consort Qi, Consort Duan, Consort Jing, and hopefully, fingers crossed, Consort Wan. We also have 1 noble lady. We have Noble Lady Qin, who is now promoted as well. And then for the newer class, or for the newer women who entered the harem at the not at the beginning, but yeah, at the beginning of the series, are as follows: 2 noble ladies, Noble Lady Hui and Noble Lady Qi, and then we have 1 concubine An, right? So we had a whole bunch of rank grants, rank grants? No, we have updates, rank updates. There you go. But yeah, as soon as that is pushed through, or I can't even talk, chat. Yeah, as soon as those ranks were stated, at the behest of the queen, by the way, this wasn't something that the emperor wanted to do on his own, but had a little bit of a push from the empress. After that kind of ends episode 42, and my final thoughts Imperial noble consort Dunsu and her family are no more. I'm sure we'll have to deal with more trickery and cunning enemies, as we got quite a few promotions of the women, excuse me, while also losing concubine Shang. So, you know, be on the lookout for that, chat, because you can never be too idle in the palace. You can never because someone's always going to try and come after you one way or another. It also is looking like Wan Bi and Le Ju are getting married soon, hopefully. It's been brought up a second time, so maybe that's the drama's way of saying, hey, be on the lookout. We're about to get this shit, hey. But yeah, we're going to be moving on to episode 43. As you can see, this is our last episode, and we're just gonna go right on in. As I stated before, if you've watched Watch Club with me, welcome back. If this is your first time here, please feel free to go ahead and tune in from the beginning, or always go ahead and catch all my archived videos on my new YouTube channel. Without further ado, we're going to be hopping into episode 43 of Empresses in the Palace, The Legend of Zhen Huan, the 2011 series. This series in particular has 76 episodes, and all 76 episodes can be found on YouTube, particularly the LETV official channel, YouTube channel. I will leave a disclaimer in that all the episodes, while having English translations out, their only proper translations, or the ones that I'm using, are only up until episode 54 on YouTube. The team that is translating, the Magpie Bridge Brigade team, will initially get to all episodes, and they have an official channel and Twitter page, Twitter page, and Instagram page, in which they let you know when the subtitles are being dropped. So if you can, go ahead and give them some love, but also be understanding that there is a few people that are doing the translations and localization, so work with them, chat, okay? Without further ado, the first scene in the episode, we see the Empress is walking in to come talk to the Emperor, and as always, she is becoming an issue. She's initially stepping up her game and trying to place blockages in concubine Wan's way. Both she and the Empress Dowager, well, the Empress Dowager previously, but she being the Empress now, wait, no, that came out wrong. The Empress Dowager previously, while also the Empress currently, have asked the Emperor to not to discuss state matters with concubine Wan anymore. Both have tried to push Noble Lady Qi into his arms as a better option, though I don't think the Emperor is as cohesive about it as they think he will be. Obviously, this isn't a coincidence either. We see that the Empress, like I said, she's stepping up her game. She's also getting ready to become a huge, how do you say, como se dice, what's it called? Obstacle, there you go. She's gonna become a huge obstacle, and, one second, chat. Sorry, chat. I'm back. What was I saying? We were talking about the not coincidence of the Empress and the Empress Dowager trying to steer away concubine Wan from the Emperor. But in the next scene, we also see that while like having to also deal with her own issues, while having to deal with the issues of the Emperor, the Empress Dowager has now I guess you could say, has now to deal with Long Kadol and the issue of her constantly bringing him up and her constantly trying to get him to retire or safely retire. So yes, as I was stating, the Empress Dowager, while trying to deal with the trifles of the harem and dealing with like suppressing, for instance, concubine Wan, she has to now deal with her own issues and particularly dealing with court official Long Kadol. He was part of the last dynasty, meaning the dynasty of the Kangxing Emperor, and is now a pillar of the current emperor, a pillar of the state particularly, and helped the current emperor ascend to the throne. However, we've noticed several times over that for some reason it is causing a huge strife between the emperor and the Empress Dowager, and we're not sure why. We haven't figured out yet, but I think here we go. Yeah, I think that's going to become a big teller and a big factor in the Empress Dowager's power very, very soon. And I say that because it looks like, once again, either Long Kadol had something to do with the Empress Dowager and like her situation, or he did something behind the emperor's back, and the Empress Dowager is aware. That's what I'm picking up. But moving on, we see in the next scene, just like clockwork, concubine An is there to try and pick up crumbs and lick up all the favor from the emperor, while seemingly being or pretending, I guess, to be devoted to concubine Wan as like a friend or a sister. And when she goes to pick up concubine Wan in the morning, we also see the main reason why the empress wants to get close to concubine An. Concubine An starts to let slip some of the intimate details, though, of her and the emperor's love life, right? And that kind of gets under concubine Wan's skin, okay? And the reason why I say that is because how would she know so much if, the pillow talk of her and the emperor, weren't necessarily being shared between her and the emperor, right? Which would also cause me to be upset too, because why are you sharing such personal details, right? But I digress. Hey, Topless! Yo, I haven't seen you in forever. Mama's, where have you been? Yeah, where have I been? Yeah, like I said, in case you missed it, been dealing with some own personal ish over here, and that's caused me to be absent for a while. But your girl's back. She's back in action, so don't worries. What was I saying? Yes, we're talking about concubine An and concubine Wan being super close, and like I said, she let some of the personal details or the intimate details of concubine Wan's love life with the emperor slip in front of the empress, right? And obviously she's doing this on purpose, and as we see this as the real reason why she's so close to what's her name? I get their names confused. Concubine Wan. We see why the empress had her get next to her in the first place. Obviously, yes, to antagonize her a little bit, but to get those juicy ass details. And obviously this bothers concubine Wan. She doesn't let it bother her too much, but it does, because why are you letting those intimate details slip, right? Anyways, moving on. We also see in the next scene that after that whole fiasco with the intimate details and whatnot, we see that Lady Hui is still dealing with her scarring on her, and concubine Wan is giving her the relief gel that she was given by concubine An some while back, right? But we've already kind of deduced that she's purposely letting it, not necessarily fester, but purposely letting it take longer to heal, as a way to still see imperial physician Wen, right? And I would like to say that concubine Wan is aware, though not too aware. Like, she knows that, she doesn't know that she likes him, but I think she's starting to catch on, right? The one thing I wanted to point out, however, though, is that we notice that when Imperial Physician Wen does come, and he is here to check on Noble Lady Hui, he asks for the relief gel that she was going to recommend to Noble Lady Hui, and he asked to examine it. And we see that, and he's done this before. He, being her personal doctor, he's always examined all of her medications and anything she's taken, especially after the incident all the way back, all the way at the beginning of the series, when Chosen Maid Yu, or Escort Yu, tried to poison her, right? But I digress, because we don't get much out of that scene. We just know that he's about to take a look at it, and something tells me we're gonna find something in there, obviously. Noble Lady Hui isn't aware, like, the extent of, well, no, I would say she is, but not in the same capacity that Concubine Wan is, but she's not aware of the extent of evil and cunningness, I guess you could say, that is Concubine An, right? But in the next scene, once again, Billy Mays here with another prediction. It was spot on about official Eamon. He's now trying to frame up Concubine Wan's father by saying he's affiliated with people who supported Nin Ganyao, right? And he's using this off the basis of, you remember that last episode we were talking about how the Emperor was like, oh, I'll kill anyone who, or no, I'll kill anyone. He killed an official and pretty much sent his entire family off to hell for writing a dissertation or a poem book like dissertation on how Nin Ganyao was a really good official and he shouldn't have been killed and blah blah blah. And what's even more staggering is that both the Empress and Noble Lady Chi are in on this fucking shitty idea, this shitty plan, right? But nevertheless, we move on. He does, once again, he does frame up Mr. Zhen, Official Zhen. He does try and make it seem like they had contact, even though the Emperor doesn't believe it. He's like, I know this beyond a doubt that, you know, Zhen Yundao did not like Nin Ganyao, so there is no reason for him to even have this type of, I guess, poem book, once again, in his home. Excuse me. And so it ends with that, like, official Eamon, while, you know, leaving the Emperor with this sour note, the Emperor doesn't make much of it. He's still not relying, but he's still choosing to believe in Jin Yundao and him not purposefully doing this. Aw, we miss you too, Topless. I miss you too, girl. I have, and I will, but I have been allowing, because me and Echo share the same, production space, I have allowed him to kind of take over and, like, not necessarily monopolize it, but use it for a while because he's getting into Elden Ring, and that's a huge game. I know so many people love it, so I'm like, you know, I might as well let him get into that. But I will be back, Topless, don't worry. I'm gonna be doing, like I said, my, weekly streams for Watch Club, and, you know, any other variety streams that I see fit, so don't worry, I'll be here. Alright, let's move on. The next scene, we see that, oh yes, because we also know in the next scene, the Empress and Noble Lady Chi are talking about it, and talking about how her father should have, done this or did this to try and throw more dirt on the name of the Jin family. And in the next scene after that, we see the Emperor talking to Concubine Wan about said book, right? And she's like, oh, well, who is this? Or who is the author, right? And he's like, just read it. I want you to read it. And so she does read it. And to I guess to her credit, you know, she immediately she picks up on like the tone of the book, right? But she doesn't get that the emperor is using this as a test against her, right? Which is fine, because like, why would he want to test her out of nowhere? Why are you believing the words of someone, right? And so he's like, this was a book someone used to, you know, to defame me, right? And I want to destroy the person who wrote it, the poet who wrote the book, right? And like, once again, to her credit, she's like, I haven't read these poems too carefully, but they don't seem, you know, they don't seem that bad. They don't seem like they're just doling out, you know, bullshit against you. It just seems like a normal book, right? And the emperor, once again, because he's using this as a test, he's like, okay, but he's telling her, all right, but what if I told you these poems are used here to praise State Prince Dun, or Yun He? And she was like, okay, was this written before or after State Prince Dun was no longer State Prince Dun and just became Young He? He was demoted to commoner. And he was like, the latter. Okay, so she's like, okay, so if that's true, it's only natural that people praised him when he was a state prince, right? Why all of a sudden is it bad now? You know, it was just a book that was written during its time. It doesn't, you know, if that's true, then history is never to necessarily be looked at, because if we're looking at the history of when somebody was good, and then you can no longer use said history because that person is now bad, and not even use said history, but you completely expel it from being seen, because you can learn from your mistakes, obviously. Now that he's doing that, you know, she's still like, I don't understand why this is such a big deal. And he's like, okay, what should I do with said poet, said person who wrote this? Oh, sorry, chat. Sorry, chat just gave me a quiet text message. Sorry, chat, was just texting my mom. But anyways, yes, so he's like, so how do you feel, or not how do you feel, what would you do to this particular person? And she's like, I have no comment. I really don't know what to say. And he's like, go ahead and speak, it's fine. And she's like, well, obviously, she basically says what I said, you know, times have changed, and you know, I get that you don't want these books to be around, so maybe just destroying them, you know, will be enough. It's not necessary to pursue the person or for the peoples who collect said book. You know, you don't necessarily have to, you know, how do you say it? You don't have to strike fear into those who have had said book, because at the time in which they had it, you know, State Prince Dun was a good person in their eyes, you know, so there's no need to get so angry and then, you know, start scaring everybody, right? And so, once again, because this was a test, this isn't the answer he wanted to hear, because unfortunately her father is one of those people who did have the book, right? And he kind of switches the conversation to the topic of her promotion ceremony, and it'll be here in a few days and whatnot. And he tells her, just, you know, rest well. I'll go over to Lady Chi, you know, Noble Lady Chi. And, you know, you could tell she's a little bothered, but she doesn't say anything. And she allows him to go, you know. For me, I would have been upset. But, you know, that's just me. Anyways, the next day comes, and it's her promotion day. And everyone in her palace bows to her. And tells her, congratulations, tells her, let's get ready. We have to thank the majesties. We have to, do all these particular protocols, And so they bring out her dress. And it's this beautiful fur-lined dress that, unfortunately, when she opens it and looks at the patterns, it's completely shredded and ripped in the front. And chat, I knew it. The sec that fucking robe was torn, I knew that some shit was about to happen. I knew that they would not let her off. I knew that these people could not be trusted, chat. And sure enough, they're trying to, I guess, ruin her by destroying her dress, because it's a conferment ceremony robe, right? That was specifically made and tailor fitted to her. She can't show up to the ceremony without the dress, because also it's supposed to show, the sincerity of both the emperor, the empress, and the empress dowager in giving her this new title. So for her to show up without it, or to show up in it ripped like that, would be a huge slap in the face and a huge disrespect to all the majesties involved. Do you like the drama Legend of Dugu? I haven't watched that particular drama. Is it Legend of Dugu? Is that about Empress Dugu? Because I know there's a drama called Empress Dugu. I don't know if those are the same thing, but it is something I could check out. Maybe it'll be part of Watch Club in the future. I will say that I do have a couple shows / dramas already lined up for what I want to do next in my upcoming seasons. But I'll check that out. Topless, I'll see what it's about. But anyways, back to Empresses in the Palace. So, unable to go ahead and remake the dress because it would take 2 to 3 days to do so, she asks the master of ceremonies, or the person responsible for the dress initially, and this entire foray, to devise of a possible plan, because this can either make or break her and everyone in her palace. Excuse me. Coincidentally, though, sorry chat, the master of ceremony also says that the empress happened to send over a dress for her for repairs, right? Coincidentally, a few days ago, the empress happened to send it over. And he notices, he's like, it's a dress that follows the ceremonial protocol for the robe that you need. So if you want, we can have you use that instead as a way to then still continue on with the ceremony, but also not necessarily get in trouble, It's an appropriate substitute. And of course, and she's like, she's a little nervous. Of course, she's like, are you sure? I can't afford, for anything to go wrong, that type of thing. And he's like, this is our only option. I don't really have anything else that could help you right now because this is it. And so they go along with the plan. He brings the robe out, and it's a bit old, Jinshi says, but it does look nice. And they have to go ahead and hurry on with with it. There's no backing out now, basically. And Jinshi tells her, it looks familiar somehow. And she feels like she's seen it before, but they don't really have much of a choice. They have to go to the palace right now to go ahead and do congratulations. And coincidentally, again, in the next scene, as the emperor and empress are waiting for her to come congratulate her,